Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. My name is Elijah Charles Kiaga. Thank you very much for joining us this morning. Hopefully your Easter weekend was quite lovely. So welcome to a new month. It is the 2nd of April 2024. My name is Elijah Charles Kiaga. This is the morning drift. We do have a lot packed for you this morning, including conversations on where we are as a country in fight against corruption, or in the fight against corruption. Also this morning, we look at where the government is getting it wrong in the doctor strike. It is now the 3rd week that the doctors have been abandoning majority of public hospitals, and this week even lab technicians are going to go out to the street and join their colleagues. It is a healthcare system that has broken down at a time when been promises by the president, with the head of public service essentially joining in the negotiations with the medics across the country to at least have some sort of agreement that would take them back to work. How this ends is not something that is known for now. It's just for us to talk about it and see exactly if indeed they are going to fix it. Other than that, it has been a weekend of happenings across the country. NTSA is on the road, really making sure that all the motorists across the country are there to traffic rules and the traffic requirements and regulations. They're looking for guys driving the vehicles without adhering to public transport and safety regulations. Also, those guys with expired license plates, expired driving licenses. It's not time for you to be on the road if indeed you do not want to be on the wrong side of NTSA. Why this happening? We start this morning again with reporting other road accidents that have happened across the country. We can confirm that indeed yesterday, again, 10 people lost their lives after a matatu they were traveling in collided with a lorry. Also, this morning we can report that a bus carrying or ferrying Shabakali students from their school to Nairobi, after the students essentially closed school, was involved in a road accident and confirmed fatalities. But we do know that that bus belonging to Easy Coach company rolled over on its way to Nairobi. We're going to keep on updating you as this goes by. You can actually see that indeed, even when an NTSA is on the road, these accidents are not abating at all. Also starting this morning is that the meteorological department is telling you if you belong to some parts of the country, especially in the western part of the country, Rift Valley, coastal parts, brace yourselves then for 7 days of increased rainfall. But also at this time, northern part of the country, you've been told to hydrate heavily because temperatures are going to be rising all the way to a maximum of 35 degrees Celsius. So now you do know. Well, we take a tiny breather. Once we come back, we take a look at your dailies this morning. Well, now let's start with the Standard this morning. It's talking about Ruto's big silence as healthcare system collapse. There's a healthcare crisis in the country, with President Ruto that has not spoken about the ongoing crisis after dispatching his chief of staff to help end the doctor strike. 2 weeks later, even lab technicians are about to follow clinicians and doctors in downing tools. When will the government and the unions find a common ground to save Kenyans from suffering? That story has been covered on page 2 and 3 of the Standard this morning, a story that has also been heavily covered on our website, that is on www.lookuptv.co.ke. Story here on page 4, you're going to read a story about how a lawyer has moved to court seeking orders to compel parents and guardians to only give adult jobs to those above 18 years. He wants minors allowed to learn and play. So if your child who's closed school or is about to close school this week, by the way. If you give them jobs that are deemed to be for adults, then yeah, you might be arrested. The story has been covered on page 4. The story here on page 10 and 11 about orphanages, the children that no one wants. You're going to read that story right there. Story page 7, there's a story on succession fight that could kill ODM. Raila wants. Story has been covered on page 7. And members of parliament reproach government on a school funds. Story has been covered on page 5. And that's pretty much it. And the story on page 38 and 39, where there's no other like Safari Rally. Story has been covered on page 39 right there. Now, on the back page, you're going to read the story here on Arsenal. I'm going to read for you. There's a story that has essentially been compiled by BBC. They're talking about for Arsenal, victory grows through harmony. All right, I'm going to read for you the first para. Arsenal, almost a year on from the start of the collapse that cost them dearly in last season's Premier League title race. So all vital signs will be placed under the fiercest scrutiny as they face the same pressures again. Now, the Ambe test remains a visit to Manchester City, who forced Arsenal to crack under the strain of relentless pressure last year. The thing is, there's a late story. Yeah? It's a late story. Talking about a visit to Man City. We visited Man City and we drew 1-1 or 0-0, sorry. Don't know how it is. There's also Bayern is in unrest ahead of the Arsenal date. All we can say is that we are ready for them. That's it. That's all we can say. And that is happening next week after our visit, or after Luton visits Arsenal at home. That's all I can say. Good. If you want to read about Arsenal, and that's for any other person who doesn't know about Arsenal, then you're going to go to the back page of the Standard. Story here on the Daily Nation. Then let's cross over it. There's a big divide over the NATCO report. You know, there's a war of words now currently between the ODM side and the government side, with the ODM side accusing the government side of trying to sabotage the full implementation of the NATCO report. That story has been covered on page 4 and 5 of the Daily Nation. Raila reads riot act amid ODM secession battle. We talk about that this morning just a little bit. Story has been covered on page 6. ODM leader Odinga has convened a crucial meeting of the party's top organ today to discuss the modalities of conducting its elections and to address the complex secession politics threatening to split the party over its planned exit. And the story has been covered on page 6. Story on page 3, I'll visit Joe in prison and forgive him. Monica Kimani's father now says. Story has been covered on page 3. Good. That's part of the stories that have been covered here. Majority of them have been covered on our website on www.lookuptv.co.ke. We take a tiny breather once we come back. Your newsroom this morning. Welcome back. The Kenya Medical Practitioners, Pharmacists and Dentists Union, KMPDU, now says it is ready to prolong the strike if the government is not interested in addressing its members' concerns. KMPDU has condemned the recent threats and intimidations that have been issued by various county governors, management of referral hospitals and the Ministry of Health, demanding doctors to return to work under duress. KMPDU Secretary General Dr. Davji Atela has said the union will not accept threats and intimidation into abandoning the legitimate struggles for better pay and a conducive working environment. Ebi Kandenyi now reports.
Day 19 of the doctor strike, the medical fraternity is still holding hands in solidarity, refusing to give in to the Minister of Health's threats on their career. Meeting to resolve the stalemate have failed, paralyzing services in major hospitals across the country. Medical practitioners holding on that they will not relent on their pursuit to have demands met by the government.
As I've said, the government has no plans. There seems to be much rudderless and planless over these issues of the CBA that you gave in the notice. We've had many meetings with them, and in all these meetings, there is no any offer on the 19 things that we have gave in the notice. What they keep floating for us or dangling for us are the court orders or the suspension of the strike. So we say that if they keep insisting on that, then they should go to the hospital and offer services. If they keep insisting on no negotiation, they should go to the hospital and use the court orders to treat the patients. But for us, we are demanding for one thing, that these issues that made us get out of work must be resolved because they are court orders.
KMPDU took the opportunity to justify why they went on strike, adding that the strike will go on if the government does not heed to their demands.
No way, as chair of COG or as council of governors, they will demand doctors to go back to work when none of these issues have been resolved. We are saying that all the doctors, including the doctors of Kirinyaga, will be out until the issues that we have put forth are resolved.
The county governors, who are the employers of the healthcare workers since health was devolved, has been hit hard with the Council of Governors, finding itself between a rock and a hard place. Mombasa Governor Abdul Somad Nasir has asked the doctors in Mombasa not to allow the problems with the national government to affect them. Speaking in Malindi, Governor Nasir said there is no single month that doctors have received their salaries late in Mombasa, and hence they should let the problem with the national government to remain with the national government.
Kama ni kweli munahisi ya kwa kuna dhambi nyingine imefanywa kule, basi nakubalini pia mishahara msiweze kuyachukua. Kwa sababu kama mishahara tumelipa, dawa ziko katika hospitali, mamilioni ya pesa tumelipa ya NHIF, tumefanya chungu mzima. Usikie madaktari hawaendi kazini, huijui la kwanza, hulijui la pili, yani mambo ambayo kwamba hayahusiani na watu wa county, hayahusiani na Abdul Swamad, hayahusiani na Mungaro, yenye kuhusiana na mambo ya serikali kuu, naamua tu kwenda. Mimi nitawasihi mulioko hapa, waombeeni Mungu. Waombeeni Mungu, Mungu awatie imani. Kwa sababu watu wakidhoofika afya zao, itakuwa ni jambo ambalo kwamba si sawa hata mbele ya Mwenyezi Mungu.
It's a healthcare sector that is in crisis and getting worse after clinical officers joined the strike on Monday. Ebi Kadenyi for the Spotlight.
Right, let's then continue this morning. Well, Wiper leader Kalonzo Musyoka says azimio leaders are ready to join doctors in street demonstrations and the support of their demands if the government cannot address their grievances. Kalonzo was speaking in Mombasa after meeting with Mombasa Governor Abdul Somad Nasir. He was accompanied by Democratic Action Party leader Eugene Wamalwa. The two leaders also warned the government against scattering the National Dialogue Committee, the NADCO report, insisting as azimio they'll continue fighting for Kenyans.
Hatutaki iwe tu ni jambo la kawaida Kenya hii. Vijana walikufa kwa sababu ya maandamano, wakafa. Nimeona another headline today, the forgotten victims ambao walikufa wakisema gharama ya maisha iko juu, wakaumia, wakafa. Hata kupatiwa ruhusa tuwazike, tufanye angalau decent funeral arrangements, hatukufanikiwa. So we can never forget them. We can never forget them. Never. The victims, these are champions of this thing. And when we have a product which can at least help the country move forward, tunaona jama za udanganyifu tena. Na tuko rozetu na mafikra yetu na msukumo wetu uko kwa upande wa madaktari. Inawezekanaje unasukuma ulipe makas, waitwaje hawa? CAS walipo mshahara hata kushinda mawaziri na wabunge. Na hao ni watu nataka kusema asante kwa vile walikusaidia or something, kusaidia UDA, na ujali madaktari. hujali kabisa madaktari, na hawa ni some of our best minds.
One item kama unga kushuka does not mean gharama ya maisha imeshuka. The taxes are still going higher and higher, and this is the burden Kenyans are feeling here at the coast and everywhere else. When you are adding taxes every day, you are adding a heavy burden on every Kenyan. And this one thing, as we return to Nairobi with my brother Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, we want to assure Kenyans that as Azimio will continue fighting for them.
3 suspected bandits in Kangalita in Kalemnyang, Turkana County, killed after a heated exchange of fire. According to the National Police Service, 2 of the suspects, aged 37 and 39, had a previous criminal records, which included killing a police officer 3 years ago. Martin Mashara reports.
In Kalimunyang, Loima Sub-County, Turkana County, residents find hope as notorious bandits are neutralized by police officials. The 3 suspects are believed to be involved in the murder of 3 archaeologists in Uganda 6 months ago, an incident that led to the expulsion of Turkana herders from Uganda and the subsequent arrest of 43 youths from the community on charges of illegal possession of weapons.
Jana kitu kama baada ya masaa 6 hivi, hawa walivu walipatikana zaidi ya ngambo huko sehemu ya Kangalta, na walipatikana na waliweza kulazwa chini. Walikuwa na silaha bunduki 2 na pia hizo bunduki zilichukuliwa.
Hawa wajambazi ni wale criminals kubwa sana hapa Turkana, tena kwa hii sehemu yetu, na watu kabila hii ndio hata wale walifanya uhalifu Uganda, ndio sasa wale wa vijana walichukua na serikali ya Uganda mateka kwa sababu ya uhalifu kama hii.
This development comes shortly after the Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki visit Turkana County to bolster security measures, especially along the borders and in areas prone to violence and livestock theft. During his meeting with security officials to evaluate the status of Operation Maliza Uhalifu initiated last year, Kindiki pledged to deploy approximately 468 NPR officers to enhance security in the county.
But having assessed the situation, we are of the view that we need to increase the number of NPR for Turkana County. And therefore, I have asked the security team to work with other stakeholders and ensure that we add the number of NPRs within Turkana County by 468, which will be spread across the areas where we still have problems. As you're aware, there is an ongoing operation to deal with the security challenges, especially banditry and livestock rustling in northern Rift Valley, including Turkana County. We will show no mercy on bandits. The only language they understand is fire, and we have enough of it, and we are even increasing our capacity.
However, during his meeting with President William Ruto in Narok County, CS Kindiki reiterated his commitment to Operation Maliza Uhalifu, emphasizing the crackdown on crime in the Rift Valley region. Notably, an AK-47 rifle and ammunition was seized, and the carcass of the criminals were taken to a morgue in Lodwar. Martin Masharia for the Spotlight.
Leaders from the Somali community in Isiolo have voiced their dissatisfaction with the Interior Cabinet Secretary Kithure Kindiki, accusing him of inaction regarding the escalating insecurity in the region, which has led to significant loss of life and property. They have appealed to President William Ruto to step in and resolve the situation promptly. George Kayese now files.
Going forward, security officers in the front line are directed to act mercilessly and thwart the work of bandits.
Despite the Cabinet Secretary for Interior Professor Kithure Kindiki underscoring the government unwavering focus in combating terrorism and criminal activities, insecurity continues to pose a significant challenge that remains difficult to completely eradicate, especially in northern parts of the country. In a meeting with members of the Fourth Estate, Somali County leaders expressed their frustration over the escalating cases of cattle rustling and insecurity in the region.
Tulikuwa tunajadiliana kuhusu mambo ile shida inakumba jamii yetu, hasa insecurity ambayo imetokana na mambo ya camel rustling, na tumeona ya kwamba mahali hata ilikuwa ardhi ile ambayo tulikuwa tunafanya grazing, mali zote zimetoka hapo ndani.
Tumezeka tukua tunalia tu, na hiyo kilio yetu ninaweza kusema hakuna mali itafika, na sisi yote ni wana Kenya, yote tuko chini ya taifa moja.
Despite numerous visits from CS Kindiki, the leaders accused him of merely issuing threats to criminals without taking effective action to curb insecurity.
Tumeongea kwa muda mrefu na watu wameweza kulalama na mali imeendelea kupotea, lakini tunalaumu, mimi kama mtu binafsi na kama mtu wa kutoka jamii, nalaumu sana mheshimiwa Kindiki. Kindiki amekuwa ni mtu ambaye ameshindwa na kazi yake. Tuko tunaongoja maneno yake inakuwa na action. Yeye amekuwa ni mtu wa kusema sema na kutumia rasilimali ya umma kutembea tu kama tourist, na hakuna kazi anafanya.
The leaders urgently appealed to President Ruto to step in and rectify the situation, emphasizing the need for the government to safeguard the lives and property of its citizens. They further urged for concerted effort to retrieve the stolen animals and return them to the rightful owners who have been left destitute due to the activities of criminal elements in the region who remain undeterred by the government warning delivered by Kindiki.
Ninaomba rais wetu Mheshimiwa William Samoei Ruto, ndugu yetu ameshindwa na kazi na sisi tunaendelea kuangamia, mali imeendelea kupotea, tunataka salvation, tunataka kuokolewa.
Tunaomba ya kwamba ile operation ilikuwa tumeahidiwa wakati ule, tungependa hiyo operation iwekwe maanane na turudishiwe mali yetu.
George Kayesi for the Spotlight Lookuptv.
Kisumu County has announced plans to celebrate the Fish Fiesta 2024. This signature event is a celebration of the unique cultural and tourist attractions. Now, the event brings together communities, stakeholders and visitors from near and far to celebrate the flavors, traditions and opportunities that the city of Kisumu and its surroundings have to offer.
Dubbed Kisumu My Pride, that is meant to aggressive.
Fish Fiesta 2024 is not just a celebration of our rich cultural heritage and the abundance of the lake's resources. It is also a platform to showcase Kisumu as a vibrant hub for fishing, tourism, and catalyst for sustainable economic growth. The event brings together communities, stakeholders, and visitors from near and far to celebrate the flavors, traditions, and opportunities that our city and its surroundings offer. Through this event, we aim to highlight the significance of our fisheries industry. We also hope to promote responsible fishing practices and also to explore the untapped opportunities within the fishing tourism sector. Through activities such as Mr. and Miss Tourism, exhilarating boat race competitions, Mr. and Miss Flex, Mr. and Miss Strong, and the traditional art of the rural wrestling, we are showcasing the diverse talents and skills that make our community vibrant and unique, and also serving as a platform for promoting tourism, fostering unity, and celebrating our collective identity. To all our prospective participants, I want to encourage you to come out in large numbers and give your best, showcase the best of Kisumu, and embrace this opportunity to shine on a larger scale. As we prepare to host the Fish Fiesta 2024, I am filled with optimism about the positive impact it will have on our city and on our people.
That's it. What it's gonna be, we'll be taking fish. Maybe fish with garlic. For those who know, fish and chips doesn't make sense. The African way. You gotta take fish, white ugali specifically, with sukuma wiki and some kachumbari on the side. If they make it like that, I'll be there. But not fish and chips. It doesn't make sense. Absolutely. In fact, when people sell fish and chips, you lose the meaning of fish on the side. Fish and chips should be made illegal. For all our brother from the Kisumu region, I know you understand what I say when I say that. It is a good thing that Prof. Ogola is in the building this morning. He's going to talk about that shortly. But then on top of that, there are a couple of things that you really have to understand that are making sense to us this morning. Number one, or do not make sense. Looks as if the president is quite silent on the ongoing doctor strike in the country. Absolutely silent. Yes, 2 weeks ago, he sent the head of public service to go in and try help CS Nahuminja to come in and resolve this particular issue. But governors came in, started talking about it and issuing threats to majority of the doctors who are striking across the country. The doctors, on the 19th day of the strike, they've said, we are not going to go back. Let's come into a negotiating table that we can only go back after we get terms. But guess who's silent on it? President is not spoken on it. That's one. Number two, this morning we wake up to accidents again across the country. This morning we want to confirm for you what has happened to Shafakali boys who were leaving their school in Easy Coach, and that bus essentially rolled. And yesterday again we lost 10 people after a matatu collided with a lorry. But NTSA is on the road. Is it really working? Because if it was working, then this kind of accidents would have not been spoken of. And then finally this morning, we're going to weigh in on the government's fight against corruption and the politics within ODM, or should we say, NATCO ODM politics. Once we come back right here on the Morning Drift, we're going to be joined by Fred Ogola, Doctor, who's the President, Linda Jamii, Edward Githaiga, Africa for Haiti Chief Inspiration Officer, and Fanya Mambo Kinuthia, who are just about to walk into the studio so that we set the stage for the conversations this Tuesday morning. Good morning.
Come, let us show you Place Sport to build your dream home in Baraka Gardens, situated just 5.4 kilometers from Blue Post Junction along the Thika Gatura Road. Place finest with secure gated community, Majina Stima Eco on-site, Usitans na stories za title deeds ziko ready. Plus, flexible payment plans and financing options. Pay 30% and clear the rest in installments. Get in touch, twende site visit. For more information, contact 0794 333 222 or 0722 668 700 or visit our website www.mahasibuhousing.co.ke. Experience the beauty of Baraka Gardens today. University of Nairobi is a distinguished institution of higher learning dedicated to nurturing your intellectual curiosity and pushing the boundaries of knowledge. From state-of-the-art laboratories to modern libraries equipped with the latest resources, we provide you with the tools you need to succeed. Choose from a wide range of programs designed to prepare you for challenges of tomorrow's world. Whether in STEM, humanities, business, or the arts, our strong industry connections and career service support will help you translate your education into meaningful career opportunities upon graduation. Join a vibrant community of scholars from around the world, fostering cultural exchange, collaboration, and lifelong friendships. Book your space now for September intakes. Log in to https://www.uonbi.ac.ke for a wide range of courses to choose from. You can also contact +254 020 491 0000 or email us at pr@ounbi.ac.ke.
Save a Life is a non-profit organization that has taken the front line in transforming lives in the entire country. So far, we have transformed life of over 100,000 people through our programs, which include medical support, youth empowerment, street family program, feeding program, and climate change. Join us today as we transform lives. As we always say, service to humanity is service to God. Save a life, transforming lives.
If you want to have a proper outlook of the economy, then you have to speak to the wheels and gears of the integral businesses in the country.
And I want to be able to make the youths and everybody coming up in Kenya know that this is here locally.
Men and women in the thick of the bust of markets rising and falling, fighting to make their business decisions stick.
I've always lived in my career that I can never be late.
You need to train by yourself. You need to practice by yourself. Then from there you can compose yourself and give kind of services like this.
On season 2 of the Captain's Arena, we seek the inside of the minds, predict the shift in the markets, get inspiration to start and make sense of it all.
Just watch what everybody else is doing and just make sure you're giving back to the society.
Oof. This is the Captain's Arena.
All right, welcome back to the Morning Drift. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kenya. I gotta apologize for the sound of my voice this morning. Looks like I'm part of the growing number of Kenyans who are going through some flu. Hopefully, that doesn't affect our conversations this morning. We're gonna continue. Just before I introduce then the guest who's with us in the studio this morning, I'd like to introduce you to a subject the majority of the dailies have carried this morning. It's on the ongoing strike of medics across the country, a strike that has entered its 19th day this morning. All right, now let's then cross over to the Standard this morning so we see exactly what it is they're talking about on this particular story. They are saying that the president is quite silent on this particular issue, that is not come out to essentially speak on it 19 days after the doctors went on strike. And if you do remember, it's been 2 weeks after he sent the head of public service to go in and help the Ministry of Health come up with a solution that will see the medics go back to work. At this point, also the governors have been weighing in, because we do know that health to some extent is also devolved. The governors have come in and issued threats to majority of the striking doctors, but the doctors have said, we are not going back. Then, before we jump into our big conversation this morning, let's take a look at this story then before I introduce the gentleman who's in the studio this morning as we start to weigh in on this particular subject this morning. Let's take a look.
Day 19 of the doctor's strike, the medical fraternity is still holding hands in solidarity, refusing to give in to the Minister of Health's threats on their career. Meeting to resolve the stalemate have failed, paralyzing services in major hospitals across the country. Medical practitioners holding on that they will not relent on their pursuit to have demands met by the government.
As I've said, the government has no plans. There seems to be much rudderless and planless over these issues of the CBA that you gave in the notice. We've had many meetings with them, and in all these meetings, there is no any offer on the 19 things that we have gave in the notice. What they keep floating for us or dangling for us are the court orders or the suspension of the strike. So we say that if they keep insisting on that, then they should go to the hospital and offer services. If they keep insisting on no negotiation, they should go to the hospital and use the court orders to treat the patients. But for us, we are demanding for one thing, that these issues that made us get out of work must be resolved because they are court orders.
KMPDU took the opportunity to justify why they went on strike, adding that the strike will go on if the government does not heed to their demands.
No way, as chair of COG or as Council of Governors, they will demand doctors to go back to work when none of these issues have been resolved. We are saying that all the doctors, including the doctors of Kirinyaga, will be out until the issues that we have put forth are resolved.
The county governors, who are the employers of the healthcare workers, since health was devolved, has been hit hard with the Council of Governors, finding itself between a rock and a hard place. Mombasa Governor Abdul Somad Nasir has asked the doctors in Mombasa not to allow the problems with the national government to affect them. Speaking in Malindi, Governor Nasir said there is no single month that doctors have received their salaries late in Mombasa, and hence they should let the problem with the national government to remain with the national government.
Kama ni kweli munahisi ya kwa kuna dhambi nyingine imefanywa kule, basi nakubalini pia mishahara musiweze kuyachukua. Kwa sababu kama mishahara tumelipa, dawa ziko katika hospitali, mamilioni ya pesa tumelipa ya NHIF, tumefanya chungu mzima, usikie madaktari hawaendi kazini, huijui la kwanza, hulijui la pili, yani mambo ambayo kwamba hayahusiani na watu wa county, hayahusiani na Abdul Swamad, hayahusiani na Mungaro, yenye kuhusiana na mambo ya serikali kuu, naamua tu kwenda. Mimi nitawasihi mulioko hapa, waombeeni Mungu, waombeeni Mungu, Mungu awatie imani, kwa sababu watu wakidhoofika afya zao itakuwa ni jambo ambalo kwamba si sawa hata mbele ya Mwenyezi Mungu.
It's a healthcare sector that is in crisis and getting worse after clinical officers joined the strike on Monday. Ebi Kadenyi for the Spotlight.
That's it. And the Standard is calling it this morning that there is a man who is quite silent on this particular issue. Now, big conversation this morning is just going to be if indeed Dr. President William Ruto is winning on his fight against corruption. But if we got there, let's then weigh in on this particular issue this morning. Because indeed, if you look at top stories this morning, doctor strike again has been trending for over 2 weeks in the country. What is the way forward? And is the president really silent on it? All right, then let me introduce the gentleman already in the studio. We do have Dr. Fred Ogola, who's the president. Linda Jamie, how are you doing, sir?
Fine, thank you, sir.
Happy to have you around.
Yes.
Also this morning, we are joined by Juan Fanyamambo himself. How are you doing, sir? Happy to have you around. Let's begin like this then.
Yeah.
Some people say that you can't call the president on this one, that is not silent. Because if you say silent, just like the Standard is putting it this morning, he did send the head of public service to go in and try and help CS Nakumincha in solving this dispute between the ministry and the doctors. So the president, in a way, is not silent on this particular matter.
No, I think that is the wrong way to put it, because the president has had all these ministers, all these PSS, all these things, but the president seems to be doing everything that he wants to. If he had interest in this, he could have actually been spoken. It means he's completely disinterested. The president is interested in affordable housing. He wants to build for people houses by force, but even if they cannot be at work, doctors can't be paid, interns cannot be employed, people cannot earn their salaries, but people must have houses. How will they pay for the water bills? How will they eat in those houses? Don't you think this is lack of priority? So the president's eye of the soul is not blind, but his eye of the soul is looking in the wrong direction. And the wrong direction is affordable housing. The president has no interest in doctors' solution, because the solution does not give him any money. He does not benefit if doctors are out of the street, are working. He does not benefit if doctors are paid their salary, which are his rightful salaries. But if people pay affordable housing and it makes people believe he's constructing houses,
yes,
his pockets will be better. I told you, Allah, this is a commercial president. This is a president who is a businessman. The business of the president solving the doctor issue does not add any money to his pocket.
Yes.
But the business of forcing Kenyans to be built for houses by force puts money in his pocket, and that's why his interest is. Where there is money, the president goes himself. Where there is no money, he sends somebody.
Does it?
And I can tell you that exactly why we are trying to say he has no interest to speak. What does he speak about? But he's speaking about everything else. Now he's silent again on NADCO report, isn't it? NADCO report does not add him any money. You see now is the guys of azimio that are fighting themselves about the NADCO report as if they were not aware. In fact, according to me, I don't want to start NADCO report because I stay to what you said. According to me, the president is silent strategically. But let's look at what is the issue here. What was the president's manifesto in healthcare? The president's manifesto in healthcare was that every Kenyan will have free, accessible, affordable, reliable healthcare.
Yes.
And even said that he's going to pay for people NHIF himself, isn't it? Now, NHIF cards, which is now called SHIF, cannot even be accepted in any private hospital. I've been a board member, and I'm still a board member, of the Catholic Health Care Services in the Archdiocese of Nairobi, where we have 63 health facilities. All those health facilities, the biggest data is NHIF. You know, Simba, when you sit down and you analyze who are the biggest debtors and you find the government, your biggest debtor everywhere, people are paying premium. In fact, people pay premium even before they get their salaries. And the government do not want to pay the health service providers, which are hospitals. It shows that the president is completely, he does not care about healthcare. And without this, I just want to tell the president that according to us, for example, from Linda Jamii, and you know, Simba, that have a dream for this country. Yes, this country needs to move to a welfare state. A welfare state is a state where everybody's welfare is taken care of, where there is nothing like these are shareholders and versus others. Shareholders versus the rest of Kenyans. Because Kenyans feel left out. Everybody feels left out. You go to hospital, you feel left out. You are a youth, you feel left out in work. You are a woman, you feel left out. You belong to a certain community, you feel left out. Everybody feels left out. The only people feel left in are the shareholders who enjoys the lagasse of government. And I think these things whereby a few people take over the country, they take control of it, and they rule it, then they start giving excuses like, let's say, oh, you know, it is about development partners. No, I can tell you, I've heard people blaming IMF and World Bank. Let me tell you the truth. IMF and World Bank and the US, they have their own interest. If you're a head of state, instead of blaming them, why don't you work on the Kenyan national interest than your personal interest? In fact, according to me, the problem is not IMF, the problem is not the World Bank, the problem is not the US or UK. The problem is that the president presents his self-interest before them. If the president presents his Kenyan interest will work, and I refer you to what Obama said when he was in trial in Nairobi. When Obama was a senator, just before he vied for the US president, Obama said one thing, that every country has a national interest. So as a brilliant person, as a leader, find how you can align your own national interest to the interests of other nations. Like now, we want Raila to go to AU. What is the interest of Kenya? What's the interest of Uganda, Tanzania, and the rest? But if you look at personal interests of Ruto, in this AU thing, it might fail. But it's a national interest of Kenya, it might succeed because, for example, William Ruto's personal interest will be to eliminate Raila, but not necessarily to have African leader coming from Kenya who will zoom or exhume the Kenyan image, reputation, and the rest. So what I'm thinking here, Simba, which I want to conclude by saying, we should remove personal interest and not represent national priorities as if they are national priorities, but actually they are self-priorities. So the president presents only self-priorities. And Simba spent the whole of 2023 telling you one thing, that I talked about the broken promises William Ruto made, which I talk about manifesto Yard for Health. There should be no crisis according to William Ruto's manifesto. There should be no doctor's strike, clinician strike. There should be none. In fact, those clinicians, doctors voted for William Ruto thinking that he'll address the issue of healthcare. Yes. But what is happening is that this year, 2024, I want to bring you to a most important conversation. Broken promises, we know he has broken all the promises he made. This year, let us put Ruto to task. The president is serving only his self-interest. And that's why anything that does not interest him personally, he sends someone to do. Whatever interests him personally, he goes for it. And that's why he's silent, because that thing does not affect his pocket positively.
Pretty much. Fanya mambo, here's what we know. that health is a devolved function in this country. If you look at exactly what the government retains, the government retains policy and regulation. So any policy the national government makes, then the county governments have to adopt. So that's exactly what is left. President sent in the head of public service, and to help the Ministry of Health to talk to the doctors to come up with proper policy and regulations in how healthcare sector should be run in this country. It's been 2 weeks, no solution. Now we're getting into day 20, by the way, of the strike. Tomorrow will be 3 weeks after doctors started going on to the strike. This week they've said all lab technicians again will be out, joining clinicians and other doctors as well in the street. Is the Senate right to say that the president is silent on this particular issue when we do know very well that 2 weeks ago he sent in the head of public service to go in and help come up with a solution?
Let me ask you, how many times have we had the president talk of affordable housing? And how many times have we had him verbatim speak about the doctor strike? It tells you what is close to his heart. The doctor strike is not close to his heart. Kenya has got about 10,000 doctors working. That means about one doctor serving about 11,000 Kenyans, as opposed to the world standard where one doctor should be serving 1,000 Kenyans. So we have one doctor serving 11,000 Kenyans, which means that before we even talk about taking them back to work, even if we were to take them back to work, we are taking them back to a horrible working condition. Because if as a doctor you are supposed to treat 11,000 people, the ratio is 1 to 11,000. Whereas in a country where presidents think and governors and senators have got their brains working right, a doctor treats 1,000 people, the ratio is 1 to 1,000. But because in our country that's not very important, then we have one serving up to 11,000 people. Yes. So there's a problem. Mm-hmm. What are they asking for? A total of 4.8 billion, but to start it, they said if they got 1.2, they would be back to work. Let me tell you, if this was Magufuli leading this country, he would have said stop state house renovation at $1 billion and give to the doctors. If our MPs cared, I did the calculations, and I want Kenyans to take out their calculator. 1.2 billion divided by the 290 constituencies. They can say, you know what, we have met in parliament and we have agreed, all of us, each MP takes away 4 million from our CDF and sends it to health. This is an emergency, it's the national emergency. Yes. You stop everything else. I mean, what happens in our houses when one person falls sick? If you are painting the house, you stop. If you are building a granary, you stop. If you are going to buy tires for the car, you stop. If you are going to buy a new cow in the boma, you stop. Everything else that was going to be done in that house stops because one family member has cancer. And all the money is dedicated to helping that one family member. Now, this country should stop building an extra road, an extra toilet, an extra house, anything else that is under construction, because the country is sick. And you can't do anything when you are sick. And direct all the monies first towards making sure that we are a healthy country.
Yes.
And then now we can start having conversations. Don't pay MPs, don't pay senators, stop everything. It is that serious. Stop everything and put the doctors back in hospital. Not only that, register more, promote more, increase allocation. Like now, look at the allocation for training doctors versus our allocation for defense. Who is coming to fight Kenya? You know, put resources in the right places. Mm-hmm. A sick nation should not be building houses. A sick nation should not be building roads. A sick nation should not be building extra classrooms. What for? When doctors are on strike and people are suffering, I've always told people, just a common flu, a common cold makes you miss a show like this. And there are many things you don't do. Now you can imagine someone who is sick for the last 21 days in hospital, no doctor's attention. What do you think those people are going through? So stop everything. Stop everything, and I mean everything. When you are sick at home, when one of us is unwell in the family, everybody in the family stops their project because our brother or our sister or our mother or our dad or our uncle is unwell.
Yes.
People form WhatsApp groups. They start raising money from all sorts of places. Why is the government not doing that? Why are they focused on doing the wrong things and forgetting the important things? This is what baffles me about this government, nothing else. The fact that we have a sick nation constructing roads and building infrastructure and ministers buying belts worth 4 million, that is what baffles me.
If you wanted to see the voice of the president, Fanyamamba, you've already seen it. He moved 2 weeks ago and sent the head of public service to go in and try help CS Nakumincha come up with a solution.
Let me tell you, what is CS Nakumincha going to give to the doctors? What solution is she going to give to the doctors other than money and the employment of more doctors?
Yes.
And the employment of more interns? This nonsense of sending a PS empty-handed to doctors has to come to an end. Why are you sending a PS empty-handed to doctors? To give them what? It's nonsense. Give money to the CS. And I have said every governor can make a contribution from their kitty. Every MP can make a contribution from their CDF. I said if the MPs were to each deny themselves $4 million from their CDF, we would have the 1.2 billion. So in fact, if the governors were to chip in, probably each MP will only give 2 million. So let's not have a conversation around having dialogue about this issue. The only thing that is required is the resources to put the doctors back into their work positions.
In the workplace. And I'll be coming back to you on that. There's also the common knowledge that we do know very well, that indeed the employers of these doctors are the county governments, not even the national government. But then policy and regulation comes from the national government. How much a doctor should be paid, promotions for these doctors essentially comes from the national government. The posting of these interns essentially comes from this national government. It's policy within the Ministry of Health. Is it ever right for the governors to come out guns blazing and telling these doctors that we're going to fire you if you don't come to work? Case in point, Johnson Sakaja last week Batuan as well, warned all the doctors employed within the Nairobi County government that if they do not go back to hospital, all of them are going to get fired. That including KUTTRH, including Kenyatta National Hospital, but they haven't. Is that the best route for the governors, since this is an intertwined issue now? The national government has to make a decision that the county governments have to follow.
Simba, the issue is not policy. Is it not policy that when someone exploits you, they should pay you? Why is William Ruto telling the head of public service to go and negotiate? It's not a policy issue. Pay the doctors. Do you know, man?
It's a collective.
Yes.
It's whatever the doctors are out for is a CBA that was not agreed to.
Tell them to show us one politician who's not been paid.
Forget about the thing of CBA. The CBA was just after looking at what has failed. Because it is clear in policy. You should employ interns. How do you use and dump? Use and dump policy is something which is really painful. Unfortunately, Uhuru also did the use and dump policy because remember some of these guys were taken during COVID-19 when the country was choking. They came to volunteer to risk their life to try to salvage the situation, and then they were told, after all this, because COVID-19 was eating on the economy, we will employ you. It was a promise. It is not even policy. Why don't you look, how do you address the healthcare issue? And because I don't want to talk about that, let me ask you one question, Simba. Do you want to tell me if today I become head of state, I will be having no plans, I only wait for doctors to go on strike, then I start negotiating with them? That you do not know how many doctors you need in hospitals, how many nurses you need, how many clinicians you need. Everything is like doctors must warn you in a strike. Secondly, there's a requirement by law before doctors go to strike what they must fulfill. First, they must send a notice. Secondly, they must try to negotiate until it becomes absolutely unnecessary to go to the street. They go to the street as last resort. They take the so-called Hippocratic Act oath, isn't it? They obey it. So after you go for all avenues, Davdi Atela is a friend of mine. Remember that I've been one of very key leaders in championing for healthcare. We set up Institute of Healthcare Management in Strathmore Business School. I've trained the who is who. Lesiampe was a student at in Strathmore. the CEOs of Kenya Medical Association, you can call them Red Cross, IMF. I've trained all those people. And we know the healthcare issues. The blueprint for healthcare is clear.
Yes.
These things of healthcare were planned for. They are in the budget. They are not negotiating anything outside the budget. They are in the budget.
Yes.
So if they're in the budget, why are they not just executing the budget?
The total now, like should the doctors then get what they need, that is going to cost the government 142.8 billion.
Yes, but I can tell you this.
And that's what Nakuminja is saying, that I don't have that money.
No.
That money is not there.
No, they don't want to have the money.
Yes.
Let me take you just simple step by step.
Yes.
I've just told you, we do national census, isn't it? When you do national census, what do they tell you? We want to use national census to plan, isn't it? So they talk about how many households we have. How many members of household do you have? They even sample disease prevalences. They know which diseases are prone to affect Kenyans. They know what it takes to treat those diseases. You cannot just wake up from State House and you see doctors on the street, then you start reacting. That cannot happen. Even he has intelligence. What do they do? NIS, what do they do? The issue is not lack of information. The issue is not lack of budget. The issue is there is no will to address the issues. I've told you, by addressing doctors' issue, the present pocket will be negative. Personal pocket, I mean, isn't it? Had it been that by addressing the doctor's strike, if doctor was going to give him a percent of their salary in his pocket, he will do it. But he will get a lot of kickbacks in affordable housing. His pockets will be much better in affordable housing. Even if it's a failed project, it's a white elephant, it won't work. Because let me tell you, my brother, do you know some people who want to build for houses cannot pay rent of 1,500. Yet these houses you need 30,000 per month. When someone takes you from a house where you should pay 1,500 to a house where you need to pay 30,000 shillings, have they made you rich or poor?
It says those who can afford that will be under the social housing scheme.
No, there's nothing like that. That's going to work. Because, you know, do you know the housing has more other issues than a house? When you move to affordable housing, you cannot use flying toilets, isn't it? You have to pay for sewage. You cannot just dump things anyhow. There must be the garbage collection, isn't it? You have to have water flowing into those taps, isn't it? Those waters are not free. No one can collect garbage from you for free. No one will repair a sewer system for you. Tomorrow you wake up, the flushing toilet is not working. Do you know what it means just to change a flushing system? I have a house. Sometimes my wife called and say, we need to fix this thing, it's 15,000. And if you don't have it, you cannot flush a toilet. What will be happening? So these things are not, no one has actually told Kenyans what to do. So what I'm trying to explain here, Simba, is that there should be a budget. There's a budget for all these things. And there's a question you asked which I must address. You said that healthcare is devolved. Actually, according to the Constitution 2010, 90% devolved. 10% at the national level.
Government.
But look here, the problem is that 65% of the health budget remains with the national government to do what we call regulation, isn't it? And policy. So 65% of the healthcare budget going to regulation and policy. Am I a mad person to believe that? Medicine is down there. A doctor should be paid down there. Equipment should be paid down there. Infrastructure should be down there. You put 35% in the counties. Yes. You retain 65% at the national level. Is it not a theft? What is it doing? What is policy and regulation? How much does it spend to write a policy and regulation? Then you hear a consultant has come to write a policy and is paid 300 million, isn't it? And the doctor cannot be paid their money. So there is no lack of money here, it's lack of priorities. The other thing which is important for you to really appreciate here is that healthcare system as we have it now, we have a very bad budgeting plan. That's why in my Solomonic economics I suggest we should never ever do national budgets first. We should do what's called sub-national budgets first to take care of the regional priorities. For example, we do national budgets in the guise of the fact that we are doing national priorities, but actually they become political priorities, and now they become, by extension, self-interest priorities. And then we ignore the priority of the common people.
Yes.
And that's why we talk about these things of self-interest, whereby everything benefits the president has a budget.
Does it?
Anything that does not, where there are some places where they overspend according to the budget, and area they spend. The second thing about the budget is that the budgeting in Kenya is terrible. If I was in charge of the economic recovery of the Western countries, Portugal, Italy, and the rest, do you know when a minister of finance goes to read the budget, when you say for health we are putting 400 billion, isn't it? That money is the domicile account that can be drawn and be used. Here, our budget is on a spreadsheet. There is no money there. They do allocation, not disbursement.
Not disbursement.
So you go, and I want to go and ask a serious question in Parliament. But even Parliament, I won't waste my time. I want to go to court and ask that before we pass the 2024-2025 budget, we need to be told how the 2023 and 2024 budget was implemented. Because in Kenya, they allocate you money which you don't get. Like now, can you believe me that people are driving V8 to supervise primary school, secondary school education, yet capitation has been reduced from 22 to 16, but by allocation, not by disbursement.
Not by disbursement.
Do you know now schools are closed, isn't it?
Yes.
The money for last term was not disbursed, and the schools have closed. Now they're opening. Are they being given money for last term, or they're getting money for next term? I'm telling you, this government is completely unfocused. If you want to kill anyone, kill healthcare system, kill education. You kill a generation. Because for me, this is why it's important. That's why I'm proposing a welfare state.
Yes.
If I would be head of state in Kenya, I'll create a welfare state. A welfare state where these MPs, like Banyamango have been saying, these MPs, these governors, the head of state should have their healthcare here. Anybody going abroad must prove that whatever they're going abroad for cannot be treated here. And I got what I call capital flight.
Yes.
When you take some people who are senior for treatment outside the country, you are taking our money outside the country, because capital flight should not be understood only from the point of view that investors are withdrawing their money and taking them away. Capital flight means that money that should be spent here to grow our economy is being spent outside. For example, Toyota Kenya supplies the Kenyan government around 3,000 vehicles, isn't it? These 3,000 vehicles are serviced by Toyota Kenya at a cost of 300,000 shillings a month. Now, we are giving around 1.1 trillion shillings a year to Toyota Kenya to take abroad because they repatriate that fund, isn't it? Then the idiots travel to Japan to take a loan from those people, then bring them to Kenya at an interest. Instead of giving this money to these mechanical entrepreneurs who are here, because servicing a car is simple. It's about changing oil and changing brake pads and you are good, isn't it? Why must we get a multinational to do that for us? Do you think the Kenyans cannot just remove oil from a car and then put a new one, then put a brake? How many mechanics I can see on Ngong Road? I can see them on Langata Road. I, as president, I'll give them contracts. That money will be here. They'll educate their children. They'll pay school fees. They'll invest in business. And that money will circulate in Kenya. But taking it away is a capital flight. So that capital flight is an issue. I can tell you, there is no need of saying that governors should donate money, MPs. No. The money is in this country here.
Yes.
You hear that Uhuru Kenyatta said we are losing 2 billion shillings in corruption per day. And we are told in the recent report that corruption has doubled. Now we are losing 4 billion per day. Just cut that. Then thirdly, William Ruto said he's going to cut the budget by 300 billion. That is enough to pay doctors. If he cuts that, let him give the doctors the money.
Fanya Mambo, here's the thing. I want us to look at exactly what the Azimio coalition is saying about this particular strike. So we can come back and take a couple of notes from that, because they've said indeed they are supporting the doctor strike. According to them, is that one lady, CS Nakumincha, knew very well that there was that CBA that was seated at her office when she assumed that particular office. Guess what they're asking? Why would you sit for 2 years for these doctors to go on strike instead of you doing the policy and framework work that you're put in that office to do? Let's take a look at it once we come back. Fanyamambo weighs in on this sentiment.
Hatutaki iwe tu ni jambo la kawaida Kenya hii. Vijana walikufa kwa sababu ya maandamano, wakafa. Nimeona another headline today, the forgotten victims ambao walikufa wakisema gharama ya maisha iko juu, wakaumia, wakafa, hata kupatiwa ruhusa tuwazike, tufanye angalau decent funeral arrangements, hatukufanikiwa. So we can never forget them. We can never forget them. Never. The victims, these are champions of this thing. And when we have a product which can at least help the country move forward, tunaona jama za udanganyifu tena. Na tuko rozetu na mafikra yetu na msukumo wetu uko kwa upande wa madaktari. Inawezekanaje unasukuma ulipe makas, waitwaje hawa? CAS walipo mshahara hata kushinda mawaziri na wabunge. Na hao ni watu nataka kusema asante kwa vile walikusaidia or something, kusaidia UDA, na ujali madaktari. Ujali kabisa madaktari. Na hawa ni some of our best minds.
One item kama unga kushuka does not mean gharama ya maisha imeshuka. The taxes are still going higher and higher. And this is the burden Kenyans are feeling here at the coast and everywhere else. When you are adding taxes every day, you are adding a heavy burden on every Kenyan. And this one thing, as we return to Nairobi with my brother Stephen Kalonzo Musyoka, we want to assure Kenyans that as that
said, that for them, like, you have money. If you want to employ CASs in this country, then use that money for other purposes as well. And if you do remember, in fact, JLAC made it very open for the president. He can still go and pick 50. They did not limit it to 22 or 23 as it is. Is it true that they indeed have that money?
I've always said, and I usually tell Kenya Kwanza, if you feel that governing this country is stressing you, by the way, nobody forced you into power. You campaigned for it, you wanted the seat. So exit. Give the opportunity to people who can be able to run the country, because you can't keep complaining there was a CBA, you keep complaining there is no money, you keep complaining there. Give government to people who will show you where the money is. It's that simple. So we don't want these excuses of people telling us that there's no money, we can't pay doctors. Exit the stage, create space for people who will come and show you where the money is,
yes,
and how it can be used to pay the doctors.
So
let's not have that conversation.
Yes, for one, CS Nakumincha, if you're going to look at how this crisis has essentially gotten into the healthcare sector, would you say that 2 years of you not looking at that CBA is a problem in itself?
The question is one. When are we ever going to see in this country a strike of politicians? Politicians going to the streets and demonstrating and saying that we have not been paid our salaries.
They have.
Because that would be a beautiful day.
They have. Somebody told me to remind you that indeed politicians have gone on strike because of CDF not being released.
Not
to the
CDF.
Yes.
I'm talking of salaries. A day comes in this country when MPs and governors and senators go on the streets and says our salaries for the month of January have not been paid.
Yes.
Because then we shall know there is no money. But if there is money to pay politicians, then there should be money to pay everybody else. And in fact, the law should be changed so that the last people to be paid in this country should be politicians. You
Just to remind you, there's a book called Leaders Eat Last. Leaders eat last. If you are eating fast, you're already leader.
So, I mean, I'm a father at home. And when I get home and they want to serve, traditionally people used to say the man eats fast. In my house, it's different. I come and ask, have you eaten? Have you eaten? Are you full? Are you full? Is everybody okay? Then I can take the least portion as the last person.
Yes.
But when you find yourself, you're the father of the house, you're having the biggest portion as the first person, and the others have not eaten, and the children are going to bed hungry, and you're wondering why they are going to bed hungry. It's been 21 days. There are people in this country who've not been paid, and they have families, they have school fees to pay. And by the way, where is this government even going to deduct? You know, they're saying they're going to fire them. This money that they want to deduct by fiat for affordable housing, where are they going to deduct from people they've already fired? Because these are some of the people who are paying that money. So it's a very, 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 I would say, insensitive administration. Yes. Because if it was a sensitive administration, the politicians should be paid last. And I want to see a strike of MPs and governors and senators and MCAs wakiinua majani wakuzunguka Kenya. Even the president goes on strike and says he has not been paid, and the deputy president goes on strike and says he has not been paid. Then that is a healthy country. But if it is only doctors and teachers and, you know, civil servants, then it's unfair.
Yes.
Yes.
How is it that up to now, this particular issue, Fanyamambo, has not grabbed the attention of the National House?
As I told you, the National House is very, you know, when your mouth is full, when you're eating, you can hardly talk, because the same mouth that is eating is the same mouth that is supposed to talk. Mm-hmm. These people are thoroughly cushioned from the effects of what happens in this country.
Yes.
You talk of fuel going up. Their fuel allowance allows them to drive V8s, and we pay for it. Their medical cover, which annoys me a lot, by the way. Every member of parliament has a medical cover to the tune of 10 million Kenya shillings. 10 million. Paid by you and me. I want Kenyans to understand this very well. You and me are paying medical cover for a member of parliament to the tune of 10 million. This member of parliament is not even using what they are calling NHIF, which has changed a name to another horrible name I can't even remember. I don't even want to remember. Now, that name, they are not using that one.
Yes.
If your member of parliament fell sick today, they are covered to the tune of 10 million in the private hospitals in the country and outside the country. You and me who are paying for them, our NHIF is not even being accepted in our hospitals here. And you cannot qualify to go for medical treatment outside of this country on that horrible cover that we are being given. And so I think we need to go to the streets again and say that the medical cover for members of parliament must be scrapped, because we are the ones who are paying for it. Why should they qualify for 10 million and we qualify for less? I have a case in court and I'm going to file another one, seeking to say that all animals are equal, and we cannot have some animals being more equal than others. Now we are paying 10 million for some people, and those people are enjoying 10 million, and us who are paying 10 million are being told to use another peasant kind of arrangement, where when you are sick, even being paid for 50,000 is a problem. So that thing for members of parliament must be scrapped.
Yes.
Because it makes us unequal, and we are the ones who are paying for them.
Yes.
Those people who get a mileage allowance, I told you, for the V8. None of them drives the Vitz that we all drive in, and the small, I saw this parking here is full of 1500cc cars and below. None of them drives any of those cars, and it is us who are paying for them. And when Kenyans begin to realize this and to start making noise, and to start saying we don't want to see those V8s on our roads as long as it's being paid by taxpayers, but we don't want, and we have refused. Na hatutaki nyinyi muendeshe gari ya 1500cc if it is us who are paying for it. Nyinyi muendeshe mupate medical cover kama hii yetu ya 50,000 per, and you go to Thika level 4 hospital, you share a bed like the others. You go to Kenyatta National Hospital, you go to Mama Lucy, and you find people queuing and sitting on the floor. That is the medical cover that we want to give our members of parliament. And if it is not good for them, then it is not good for us.
Does that? Mr. Gadaiga, how are you doing, sir?
Morning, good morning.
You've come in at a proper time. I mean, we're talking about the politics of the Easter break. We're coming back with the doctor strike. If you can allow me, then I will jump with you into the next subject, because our biggest conversation this morning, which is going to take in the second part of our show this morning, is the fight against corruption and whether indeed the president is winning in this fight. So the second part of our conversation is essentially on the NATCO report. If you can, then Sheila, take us back to the Daily Nation this morning. It's talking about how indeed the Azimio coalition feels that majority of the Kenya Kwanza members in that National House want to sabotage the implementation of the NATCO report. They are actually saying the total implementation of the NATCO report. Seemingly, some people want to go to court on that particular one. Gadaiga, oh, smart here. The president is not talking about the NATCO report anymore. And the fire over the NATCO report is not really taking precedence anymore in that National House. Is it true that indeed the Kenya Kwanza side does not want the full implementation of this NATCO report?
Who is saying they don't want?
Azimio members of parliament.
The same Azimio who signed to it,
yes,
and took part and enjoyed enjoyed the allowances and breakfast
in the hope that it was
in Bomas. The same Kalonzo who presented the report to His Excellency in State House with smiles and glitters is the same person now who has changed tune. It just shows you the hypocrisy of our leaders, especially the opposition. You know, all this noise you're hearing is because Kalonzo is very insecure about 2027. Because he has seen Raila Odinga has been placed in a place where he'll be busy and doing something. What is Kalonzo going to be doing? First of all, it shows you that Azimio is a dying horse. It's dying, it's disintegrating. You can see clearly, even ODM the other day, last week, a week ago, they were saying that if you really want to be the leader of Azimio, you have to come with the numbers and you have to prove yourself. So already in Azimio, there is fights, in-house fights. The other day you saw Mother Karua and Kalonzo fighting over who's going to be the party leader. So therefore, anything that comes from Azimio is dead. Imeisha, imekufa. It's all about now self-gratification. It's about selfishness. So therefore, it is uncalled for Azimio now to start pointing fingers at Kenya Kwanza to not wanting to implement the NADCO report. Yet, the same leaders lined up in State House to present the report to the president, and lined up at Capitol Center to present the same report to Raila Amolo Odinga. I think this is a matter of jealousy. There is insecurity in Azimio, and there is jitters, because once Raila Odinga exits the scene, what happens to Azimio? So they're just playing politics of relevance, not politics of Kenyans. It's not about the Kenyan people. It is about how they will be positioned, where they will be. And in fact, we want to hear, what is that perception they are trying to build amongst the Mwananchi, yes, that the Kenya Kwanza government is not willing to implement? Yes. Can they provide facts and evidence? Because so far, they have not provided anything. It's just lip service.
Now, sources private to the Daily Nation, which carried that particular story, say that indeed the plan now for majority of the Kenya Kwanza members of parliament in that National House is to go to court to say that indeed, for us to move on with the implementation of that report, we have to go back and carry out a referendum as it is, which was not the true faith of those gentlemen who started the Bomas of Kenya.
Do you know, if you read the Constitution, certain amendments to the Constitution cannot be done by side deals.
Yes,
they cannot be done by side deals.
And that they were quite well aware.
No, listen, they cannot be done. It's not a matter of being aware. You might be aware, but you have a conscious mind. You have to be aware on what you're getting into.
Yes.
Right? So if the direction will be a referendum, so it be, because that is what the Constitution applies. Parliamentary amendments to some fundamental suggestions of the Constitution cannot be done without the public's participation. And the public participation in that fully is referendum.
Yes.
So that the public can then choose what are those amendments. The question has to be set forward for the amendments to be done.
Yes.
Because they are very fundamental.
Yes.
For example, when you talk about the Prime Minister, it is not in the Constitution. So that is a fundamental amendment to the Constitution of Kenya.
Yes.
It's a new constitution. It's not the old constitution.
So then what do you
which had the space for a prime minister.
So then what do you say about those members of parliament that are allied to the Kenya Kwanza side who actually promised that they're going to make sure that that report is implemented the way it is just before they speak turnaround?
You see, the implementation...
Case in point, the leader of majority who promised that that report is going to be done and dusted with and quicker that.
And indeed, where have you seen the Kenya Kwanza MP saying they're not going to implement it?
Reading by the silence now.
You see,
of the Kenya Kwanza
silence doesn't mean
and it's a story.
No, silence doesn't mean
and
that somebody has said they're not going to implement.
That is a story.
This is probably Azimio propaganda.
Yes.
You know, because of the issues that they are going to face. Azimio is crumbling. Azimio is crumbling. And therefore, yes, given a chance, because I've just come in, before you move to the next panelist, I can see you don't want to give me an opportunity. Are you becoming an opposition TV station?
I want to spread it across.
Part of the fight against government policy, because you know, you're trying to force Kenyans to believe that Kenya Kwanza does not want to implement. Who said so? Kenya Kwanza has not said so. Kenya Kwanza, we stand by the same effect where we said we're going to implement it
fully, isn't it?
As it is.
Yes. So when
therefore,
therefore,
and I've heard people saying it's Kenya Kwanza running to court. These are the two people who run to court.
Yes.
They are the ones who always go to court every other day. Even you've heard Fanyamambo saying that he has a case in court, you know, against this thing. So you cannot sit here and tell us that it's Kenya Kwanza. Kenya Kwanza is quiet because they don't want to be entangled in this toxic politics that is coming from Azimio. It's a dying house. It's a crumbling project.
Pretty much. Without
Raila Odinga in Kenya Kwanza, there is no, I mean, in Azimio, there is no leadership.
Sheila, if you can then please, and I'm going to give you 2 minutes because I don't want to look like I'm siding just what you're saying this morning. I'm going to give you 2 minutes to listen to Kalonzo Musyoka. Sheila, if you can, the last clip that you just played for us are the opening sentiments of Kalonzo Musyoka, because he's a man who co-signed on that particular report. So when a man who co-signed on that particular report is complaining, that means that you gotta listen. And so we're gonna listen again to Kalonzo Musyoka complaining about what is exactly going on in the NATCO report implementation. So we can come back, give Gedaiges 2 minutes before I cross over to Prof this morning. All right, Sheila, take it over.
Jambo la kawaida Kenya hii, vijana walikufa kwa sababu ya maandamano, wakafa. Nimeona another headline today, the forgotten victims ambao walikufa wakisema gharama ya maisha iko juu, wakaumia, wakafa, hata kupatiwa ruhusa tuwazike, tufanye angalau decent funeral arrangements, hatukufanikiwa. So we can never forget them. We can never forget them. Never. The victims, these are champions of this thing. And when we have a product which can at least help the country move forward, tunaona jama za udanganyifu tena. Na tuko roho zetu na mafikra yetu na msukumo wetu uko kwa upande wa madaktari. Inawezekanaje unasukuma ulipe makasi, waitwaje hawa? CAS, walipo mshahara hata kushinda.
Much is co-signed on it, and you can hear him saying, well, I know very well there are members of the Kenya Kwanza side who don't want this particular report implemented. There it is.
You see, my brother, in fact, Kalonzo Musyoka, I'm asking Azimio youth to do a demo against Kalonzo Musyoka. This is the first time Kalonzo Musyoka in the entire 6 months that have gone when the NADCO report, because it's about 7 months actually, he has mentioned the victims, the youth who died because of those maandamanos. While he's a beneficiary, can he refund the allowance that he was paid for the NADCO report? Because he was paid an allowance, sitting allowance. He was given security. Can he return that money? Because it's hypocritical for Kalonzo Musyoka to be peeing on the graves of those young people who fought for the whatever cost of living, and now he's bringing it up. He's trying to misuse young people of Kenya, and young people of Kenya should not accept that. Secondly, Kalonzo Musyoka signed on the NADCO report.
Does it?
What a hypocrite Kalonzo Musyoka. I think Kalonzo Musyoka is just a person who has no political future. He wasted his time. He thought that he'll have an easy pass. Like now you can see the wrangles that he's fighting. Kalonzo Musyoka is fighting everybody, including Martha Karua. Martha Karua is the deputy party leader of Azimio, isn't it? Am I right or wrong? Kalonzo is nowhere. He has no position. He was number 3. So now he's even fighting Madam Martha Karua, saying that position of deputy, he's the one supposed to be the party leader. It cannot happen.
But on this particular point, he's talking about members of parliament who are sabotaging the implementation of the NADCO report.
That is crap. Members of parliament, of which he's members of parliament Wiper.
He is talking about the opposition. He's talking about the government member of parliament, the ones who are like the Kenya Kwanza.
This is a leader who has lost direction. He has nothing to offer Kenyans apart from propaganda and useless nanwendos. That is what he's bringing on the table.
30 seconds. 30 seconds before I jump to Prof. Yes.
All I need to tell my brother here.
Yes.
He keeps talking of the death of Azimio. And I don't know who is this who likes if people are dead, why do you keep talking about them? Why do you keep going to Langata and reminding people that you are dead, you people are dead? Are they going to hear you if they are dead? Azimio is not a formation. Azimio is an ideology.
It's a collusion.
No,
bro.
listen to
like
me.
An ideology.
You are in Kenya Kwanza, you can't tell us about our house.
But you're telling the president what to do. You just 5 minutes ago you're telling the president to quit if he doesn't know what he's doing. So be straightforward. No, but he cannot try to teach me.
He asked for 30 seconds.
Yes, but he cannot try to teach me.
Please give it to him. I'm going to give you a chance. I'm going to give you a chance to respond. I'm going to give you a chance to respond. Yes.
Sometimes it's good to give Githaiga tea in the morning.
But it's coming, by the way. It's going to come.
And with a lot of milk.
Does it?
Because when he takes that,
check 30 seconds. Check 30 seconds.
I'm going to walk out. Honestly, he has to withdraw that statement or I'm never coming back. Honestly. What does he mean with a lot of milk? What is he trying to say? This is becoming personal.
No. It's not personal. No. Githaiga, for the sake of the conversation this morning, please.
Until he withdraws.
For the sake of the conversation. It's a debate.
No, it's a debate.
It's a debate this morning, Githaiga.
What is he insulting me for?
No, it's not insulting. It's a debate. Please. Githaiga, for the sake of the conversation.
You're being very biased yourself.
Honestly,
I'm getting enough of this. How can he tell me here on live TV that he needs to add more milk? What is he trying to say?
Githaiga, proper banter this morning. You gotta take it.
No, I cannot take that. I have children. I have people watching me. What is he trying to say?
Pretty much
that I cannot afford a cup of tea in my house.
No. The same way, Githaiga, you come in and say, well,
Simba,
don't be biased.
I have not insulted his character. He's trying to assassinate me character-wise.
Isn't it? Githaiga, can we stick to the issues, please? If we can.
Stick to the issues, but don't be personal.
That's it.
I'm telling you withdraw. I'm going to go.
I also want you to stick. I also want you to stick to the issues, please.
Honestly, I'm going to go.
That's it. I want to jump to Prof this morning. I want to jump.
I am not changing from that demand. Until he withdraws.
But you keep quiet.
Githaiga, then you let him come back to it then.
Yes.
That's it. He can even explain what that joke means, Githaiga.
It's not a joke.
It's actually a joke.
There are certain things that are not jokes.
That's it. Please, 30 seconds before you go to Prof.
You see, when you tell me to withdraw and continue talking, how do I withdraw when you're still talking?
Exactly. Yes. Fire Mambo, continue.
Azimio is an ideology of better governance, of good leadership, of accountability, of paying doctors' salaries on time, of refusing to build houses when people are impoverished and people do not have medical care. So, to the extent that those problems continue to exist, Azimio la Umoja, the idea of bringing people together for common good, is not dead. So anybody who wants to come and say that Azimio is dead, and shouting, it's like coming to Langata and telling people, you people are dead. And then you keep reminding them that they are dead. If they are dead, you don't address the dead. The reason I address Kenya Kwanza is because they're in government. It's not because they are dead. They're in government and they're in leadership. So let's not talk of the Azimio coalition as a dead coalition, because it's an ideology that will not die.
Yes.
And it's an ideology that is different from the Kenya Kwanza ideology.
Yes.
And we are measured in our conversations. And we don't interrupt people when they speak. That's Azimio.
Prof, I'm going to come to you, just for the sake of balancing the conversation. Githaiga, on this particular issue for the hypocrisy for one, Kalonzo Musyoka, is not becoming a hypocrite on this issue. Is already reading into the issue, saying is calling out the Kenya Kwanza members of parliament who are sabotaging the implementation. That's essentially what it is.
I will not answer any question concerning Azimio. Please don't ask me.
It's not azimio.
No, anything to do with azimio, I'm not talking about.
Githaiga,
ask me about Kenya Kwanza, not azimio.
That's what I'm saying. This is a Kenya Kwanza issue.
In this show,
please,
there is a bias, and me, I'm not answering any question concerning azimio.
Azimio, I've asked you a question about the Kenya
Let
Kwanza
him
members of
answer.
parliament.
He's asking about.
I'm asking you a question, Githaiga.
Okay.
I'm asking you a question. It's about Kenya Kwanza. Do you want to answer it?
If it's Kenya Kwanza,
that's it. But I've asked it.
But
I've asked you. But I've asked you the question.
Elijah,
it's about Kenya Kwanza. Yes, fanya mambo.
It is not possible.
Do you want to answer?
To talk about NADCO without talking about the
Kenya
two
Kwanza members of parliament.
protagonists. You see,
yes. I have my own integrity.
Does it?
And when somebody attacks my character, I do not take that lightly. Not you, the panelists here.
No, hold on.
And he has not, you just told him to continue and he has not withdrawn. So, I'm not also going to answer.
Do you want to answer me?
Yes. I will not answer that question.
He has said he has answered.
On the basis of what?
Elijah, he has answered.
On the basis of what?
I choose to keep silence like Kenya.
Yes, that's
all right. So guess what? I'm just going to pick two minutes, Prof, just before we continue with this particular conversation. On the basis of the NADCO report, there are two sides here that are building up. The Kenya Kwanza side is already saying, well, we are not sabotaging the implementation of the report. But the Azimio members of parliament are reading it heavily, that we were promised that once we go back to the National House, that the implementation was going to be swift and clean. But they are reading a big silence from the Kenya Kwanza side. We're saying, well, where is that implementation? Currently as it is, there are people from the Kenya Kwanza side, according to the Azimio members of parliament, who want to go back to the court, for the court to come in with another interpretation of this particular report and the implementation process. Is that what we are calling this morning, or what the Azimio coalition is calling out this morning? Prof, I want us to go for a tiny breather this morning. Once we come back, I will be giving you the time to respond to it. Before we come back to our biggest conversation this morning, all the way from fertilizer, the NTSA drive within the country this morning, and that big report that the ESC released last week that is talking about how corruption has essentially become deep within the government. They're saying that averagely from 2022 to date, the amount of bribe that you're paying in government services or to get government services has doubled. Remember, the biggest promise for President Dr. William Ruto when he came into power was that I will not allow corruption and misconduct, and corruption as well was going to be dealt with ruthlessly. Once we come back, has he won the fight or it's deep within? Also on top of that, the biggest or the top performing CS was Kithure Kindiki, has a ministry that is the most corrupt as well, according to that report. Is it all lost when it comes to fighting corruption in this country? The hashtag is The Morning Drift at Lookuptv across all your social media platforms. I am Kenya Simba. We come back.
Open University of Kenya, which was chartered on the 3rd of August 2023, aims to revolutionize higher education by breaking down barriers such as cost, previous exam grades, and geographical location through online open learning at the comfort of your home, job, etc., thus ensuring accessibility to education for all members of the society. In a nutshell, Open University of Kenya leverages technology to deliver education.
Open University has brought a new dawn in the Kenya education system, where learners are able to access education in a flexible, affordable, and all-inclusive.
Intakes ongoing for May and September. For more information, call us on 0202 000211 or 0202 000212 or email us at info@ouk.ac.ke. Open University of Kenya, an innovative university for inclusive prosperity.
Did you know how Zinawi Real Estate have made families' dreams come true? We've already settled many families in Juja Gardens Phase 1 to 5. And now, introducing Juja Gardens Phase 6, right in the heart of Juja Farm, selling at an incredible 850k only. Secure your plot with just a 30% deposit per 8 of an acre, with all amenities ready and title deeds waiting for you. For more information, visit us at Gitwamba Plaza, 2nd floor, Ruto Town, or call us at 0794 880000. Pata title uitwe bosi.
Buy Credo Chap Chap across all networks bila stress. Go to M-Pesa paybill number 33000. Na uweke account number yako na namba ya simu that you want to recharge. It's quick, convenient and hassle-free. In just a few clicks, buy airtime. M-Pesa paybill 33000. Account your number to stay topped up and connected anytime, anywhere. Chap Chap.
Tuko hapa Kaptara, tunataka kusema asante sana Loto Foundation kwa mambo mazuri ambayo wameweza kutufanyia leo. Wakaaji wa hapa Kaptara, wakaaji wa hapa Salawa, wakaaji wa hapa Mujukuo, mpaka wakaaji wote ambao wanatoka hapa Baringo County.
Naambia Loto Foundation asante kwa kazi nzuri wanayofanya. Mungu awabariki.
Every time you play Lotto, 25% goes to the Lotto Foundation, which supports our fellow Kenyans through various causes. Thank you for your help. Together, we are changing lives.
Prof, yes, Gedega, we're back. Yes, Gedega, we are back. Gedega, we're back. All right, you're watching The Morning Drift. This is Lookuptv. My name is Simba Elijah Charles Kiaga. This is how heated it is even now on the back, and we like it this morning. And guess what, Prof? Let's stick to the issues this morning then, so that now we can move it forward. I mean, if you look at the true faith of the gentlemen and the ladies who sat at the Bomas of Kenya and gave us this particular report, it was sort of a consensus that this particular report goes the way it is. I mean, that's why we had to go back to the National House and the Senate House to entrench all the discussions that were going to come from this particular report as law, so that the National House could look at them, pass them quickly at that, so we could have a report that we are writing on. And it looks as if that was the consensus from the from the Bomas of Kenya. We've gone back to the National House, and now there are these talks, there are these rumblings from the opposition side that indeed the Kenya Kwanza side doesn't want the full implementation of this particular report. Who would not want the full implementation of this report? Who has more to lose if this report is not implemented in its entirety?
Yeah, first of all, Simba, let me say this way that I have been on show and I've said this clearly, that I made the following statement that Raila Odinga has never been the best boardroom negotiator, but he's a very powerful person on the street because people love him. And by people loving him, he delivered on the hands of Kalonzo one of the best things ever, the NADCO negotiation, the bipartisan talks. Now, Kalonzo was supposed to take the gold given to him and make it platinum. You understand? And I said Kalonzo was not the most qualified person to be in that co-chair. We were there on the show. I said I would prefer Martha Karua, because Martha Karua has got. Look at what he did for Kibaki. When they're negotiating in Serena, Martha Karua was the most difficult to deal with. I have met Kofi Annan. I've worked with him closely. And he told me convincing Martha Karua to stand down on any of the terms was the most difficult person in that panel. And she said she was difficult not because of just being activist, but she was very knowledgeable. about how everything you are proposing will be implemented, the implications and repercussions in every way. But you see, Kalonzo Musyoka, instead of even the allowances was sitting, now Githaga is right by saying he was eating allowances, isn't it? Instead of even eating the allowance fairly, Kalonzo Musyoka was rushing to East African Portland because the East African Portland case, the land stolen there, he was involved. So he actually left the seat and was rushing at East African Portland to sort out the issue. Because you see, when the investigation was going in place, we are trying to focus this discussion, this investigation not to touch you.
Yes.
So Kalonzo Musyoka was not the qualified. I gave first statement that Raila Odinga is not one of the best boardroom negotiator. Secondly, I talked about the issue that Martha Karao was a better co-chair than Kalonzo Musyoka.
Yes.
Thirdly, I talked about that we were trying to solve an economic issue, but we are using politicians and communications experts to sit there instead of being given a technically enabled people who could ensure they come up with a framework for the execution of the NADCO report. So I said, most wars are lost before they begin. If you start quarreling with your wife when you have no facts and she has facts that you slept outside and where you slept and with who, isn't it? You cannot win this war. You lost before the discussion begins. So NADCO was done by the time they settled on the team in Bomas. It was done. I was the first one to present my memorandum in Bomas. The first one. Actually, they marked it number 1 and stamped it. And I said that this team set up, the terms of reference done in Parliament and given to these people was not going to make this thing have any impact whatsoever. So it was dead on arrival.
Yes.
We are here with Father Mambo. We have never supported that NADCO report in one way or the other. But I believe that that's one of the issue. Now, if you want to know, if you want to do anything in life, have to check who has failed in the same thing elsewhere. Because if you know, Russia, I want to do this thing, have you checked where it has failed? Now, do you know why Accord succeeded? And I told Raila Odinga, Baba, ensure that the negotiation in Bomas is akin to the National Accord. Now, if you want to know where this failure is, check the NADCO framework and the National Accord. By the time Raila Odinga was meeting with Kibaki and shaking hands when they are now going to cease fire, isn't it? It was already, the framework had been put clear that they are going to share government. That was clear, isn't it? It was a handshake. It was a government and national unity. That was been declared before. And everything had been drafted, so it was being passed to member of parliament just to pass it into law. And they were not supposed to debate much. It was just passed into law so that peace can prevail. Kofi Annan was still here. Even how they are going to amend the constitution in 2010, it was already outlined, and it was a question whereby they knew when Attorney General was going to resign, a new one will come in, Chief Justice. Now, if we did not do something akin to what succeeded, it means we are moving away from best practices and choosing practices which have failed.
Yes.
So that's my first submission. On Kalonzo, he's now blaming, actually he even blamed Ruto and Raila for having not really focused on implementation. Kalonzo is looking for relevance because Kalonzo has no agenda. If he had an agenda, he could have been running with the agenda. But maybe things that by blaming Raila and Ruto, he might start looking relevant.
Yes.
I can see even he's trying to look a bit agitated, but you can see it's a bit colorless. You see, if Raila Odinga was the one saying those statements, if Raila was to call and say those very statements, you could see the country's color change.
Yes.
And that's not him. So the other thing, I'm talking about the issue that Kalonzo is not capable of taking advantage of the challenges in a NADCO report and become relevant. If he was wise, there's a way he could have approached the NADCO issue and make it a Kalonzo issue. And by making this Kalonzo issue, he could actually put enough pressure on William Ruto so that people can start seeing a match between William Ruto and Kalonzo looking relevant. If not, it might look like an accident, a coalition, a head-on coalition between a trailer and a bicycle. So if he is looking like a bicycle and William Ruto look like a trailer, you know very well if that happens, we won't even notice there was a bicycle here when a trailer passes over a bicycle. So Kalonzo was supposed to come and look very strong on the issue of NADCO and come up with the terms of reference. Thirdly, I know Kalonzo is a lawyer. And we have never seen his legal mind in when he's dealing with issues. So when they're in Bomas, did he look at a legal framework that if you put in NADCO, even this court petition cannot beat it? You know, if I'm a lawyer, I'm a strategist, I'm an economist. When I analyze my economic and strategic aspect on any issue, when I propose a strategy, I know this one cannot be beaten by any strategy. Kalonzo, being a lawyer, co-sharing in Bomas, if you present a report to Raila Odinga and William Ruto that has no implementation framework, and you are a lawyer, are you giving service to it? And I said here, Simba, that NADCO report was pedestrian in the beginning. And if it was a pedestrian in the beginning, it was not going to work, and it won't work. So that is a very big issue here. But allow me to do the following. I want to weigh in on the issue of azimio here. My brother has said azimio is an ideology. Currently, why they are going to have an issue, you look at the newspaper here, is it the Standard or which one? The Nation. It's the Nation. Where they are divided. So that division, where is it coming from? If azimio was an ideology which had got a framework, isn't it? Why don't they have a common ground? Did they approach NADCO report when they were divided, or they are divided because now they want to get the spoils out of, they are trying to divide the spoils. For example, you know, there are positions here. Prime Minister, isn't it? There is a position for leader of opposition, isn't it? There are some position there. Where does it go? So azimio has an issue. Because of what? They are fighting among themselves who is the leader, but according to me, they should be finding a way to bring more people into azimio. Because now they are saying, is it Kalonzo, Martha Karua, or Kioni, or who? Or Eugene Wamalwa? Let me give an analogy. When you are heading a football team, that Messi is a striker, or Ronaldo. When you lose a Messi or Ronaldo, you cannot start fighting within the team who becomes the striker, because they don't match Ronaldo. Raila is a Ronaldo or Messi of any team. By Raila leaving, they should be looking for someone outside, because I can tell you, the person who can take azimio to the next level is not inside azimio, it's outside. When you lose a player, you sign a staff from outside to come inside to make azimio stronger. If Raila leaves azimio, and Raila was everything, is there anybody inside azimio that can fill the gap? And if Raila leaves azimio, and no any strong person joins azimio, azimio is for sure weaker structurally, isn't it? In terms of mobilization, is weaker. Resources mobilization, people mobilization, what we call the issue of pulling the crowds, all that will be weaker. So azimio needs to start looking so organized that people can score very well, feel like they want to come to azimio. Then they have to get the right people in the bus in azimio until we have a strong team in azimio before they say who sits where, who takes which position. But this one where Kalonzo Musyoka is still fighting who comes in, then there's lack of leadership in that, and that will be the big problem.
Pretty much. Good. Gentlemen, if you can allow me then this morning, just for the sake of time, let's look at the biggest topic that we're talking about this morning. I mean, there's a report that ESA released last week that is a damning report to the fight against corruption in this country. But this is what the report stated. Number one, that what Kenyans are paying for corruption has now doubled from 2022 up to where we are right now. In fact, that report focused up to 2023. They also said that leading in the amount of corruption money that you gotta pay is getting a government job in this country. Currently, it is on an average of 116,000 shillings. They go on to say that if you look at those ministries that are the most corrupt in this country, it is the Ministry of Interior that is sponsoring 47.4% of the corruption index in this country. And also, consequently, also, if you look at the departments that are most corrupt, Immigration Department is also leading in that corruption index. But then, gentlemen, let's look at what the government or the president has said in this particular fight against corruption. And I'll read for you just headlines of how many times the president has come in, and most recent, to be sure. President William Ruto, and I'm reading from our website, www.lookuptv.co.ke. When you just search corruption, guess who appears? It is President. President Ruto said, we are determined to fight graft within state arms. No arm of government will be spared in the fight against corruption. Goes on to say, war against corruption. He promises 1,000 unit houses in Makueni. Ruto yet again vows sleepless nights for corruption and judicial officers. You will soon see Ruto once against graft suspects. There's just countless of headlines that we've covered here on Lookuptv on the president's plan to fight corruption. So if indeed we have a new government in place that comes in with the promise to fight corruption, Fanyamambo, why are things getting worse if that report is anything to go by?
Number one, I thank God that this report is by EACC chairman, David Oginde. Because Kenya Kwanza would have said it's done by some pollsters that they are not believed in. EACC, even the new chairman, they know when he came into place and who he is. So when he talks about corruption in government, then we can say he's a credible source about it. And it starts with the fertilizer. And it's just that you can't give condolences to people who are alive, so you just say my apologies to the farmers who bought fertilizer that ended up being very horrible fertilizer. And people will argue and say, oh, it was counterfeit, it was produced by other forces. But I ask people, who is in charge of standards in this country?
Yes.
It is the same government. KEBS is a government entity. Who is in charge of standards in this country? It's the same government. Who deals with anti-counterfeit? It's the same government. Who is supposed to arrest the perpetrators? It's the same government. So coming to tell Kenyans that this fake fertilizer is not coming from this government and that the government is, the people are coming to sabotage the government, you ask yourself, by the time stones are being put in bags and those stones are being sold to farmers, and money is being paid by farmers, and we have KEBS and we have EACC and we have the national intelligence and we have the police and we have roadblocks all over this country and so on and so forth, where was the government? So the government cannot exonerate itself from this. But there is hope that those stones are not useless. They can be used for the affordable housing project. You know, the foundation needs a lot of gravel. So I would recommend that instead of throwing that fertilizer, it be taken to affordable housing. You putting in the foundation there. And by the way, it will fertilize the imagination of the engineers, and the houses might flourish very quickly and become occupiable very quickly. So this government, unfortunately, when you talk about corruption, sometimes it's commission, sometimes it's omission. And the fact that fertilizer could find itself, you know, packaged in bags, transported, sold, getting to farmers, to their farm, and money has been collected, there's no way this government can be able to exonerate itself from it. Because let's say the government didn't produce this fertilizer. We can give them the benefit of that doubt. But KEBS belongs to them, right? The anti-counterfeit belongs to them. The Kenya police belongs to the government. The people who were supposed to stop this menace belong to them. The people who are supposed to do arrests, the people who are supposed to prosecute, it's still government. So unless we see a very firm and decisive action on the part of government against those people who brought this fertilizer, I still feel that the government has failed in the fight against corruption.
Pretty much. Here's a snapshot, Geraiga, that indeed most of these parastatals that we're talking about here have got new bosses that are appointed by the new government within this period. This report is getting released. That you would like to think that the index would have gone a little bit down because of a shift on focus for the government, and for a boss who was appointed, these bosses in these parastatals, was stressing on corruption, was time and time again come and promised Kenyans that no shilling will be lost, that all those corruption cases are going to be dealt with fast and quick. That's exactly what majority of our headlines here at Lookuptv read. But then, even on these particular cases for fertilizers, even on this particular case for the Ministry of Interior, where even the president himself has issued decrees to have it solved maybe within 3 months on his biggest project in the country, fertilizer subsidy program. That's where corruption again has gone in and is deeply entrenched. Somebody will ask the question, why haven't we even seen a couple of people go home because of these particular issues?
Actually, you know, investigation has to be carried out and substantiation, because you know, in Kenya we have a lot of propaganda that is anti-government. Anything good that the government is doing, there's always sabotage. People are always trying to sabotage. So we should allow the DCI to investigate and give us a report on that fake fertilizer, because we know there are people in this country who would like to tarnish the government's name and protract it like it's government who is giving fake fertilizer. I don't believe there is fake fertilizer in this country, and if there is, it is just the same way there is corruption in this country. The issues that we are facing in this country, especially if I talk about corruption, corruption came with the colonialists. When the colonialists took away our land, that was corruption. That was theft. They are the ones who started this corruption. Even when the first government of independence came in, the corruption went on. You cannot then blame 60 years of independence on William Samoei Ruto. This is a pandemic. This is an epidemic. Corruption is something that we as Kenyans all have to fight. And I'm glad you raised that matter of that report. Indeed, corruption is two ways, especially when you look at the index given concerning Ministry of Interior.
Yes.
If you look at the level of which there is bribery in the transport system, in the roads, there is a lot of corruption where the police are receiving bribes. And therefore, the incidences of corruption will be higher within the Interior Ministry than anything else. Yes. However, I would like to also point out a strategy that is in the woodworks, which is dubbed the Presidential Anti-Corruption Strategic Plan.
Yes.
This strategic plan looks to do several things. To have a comprehensive assessment of the corruption situation in Kenya. You have to give William Samoei Ruto the time to be able to have a comprehensive assessment of corruption situation. And I'm glad the EACC has gone ahead and provided a guiding document or guiding policy document to the situation of corruption in Kenya, which will guide the president on the way forward. These things of knee-jerk reaction that we have seen from past presidents, that's not how William Samoei Ruto operates. Secondly, identify the corruption risks, loopholes, and vulnerability. This is what the strategic plan is going to come and do. His Excellency William Samoei Ruto's strategic plan on anti-corruption is going to identify the risks, loopholes, and vulnerability. Why does it happen? What needs to be done? Secondly, the other thing that we also have to look, which I've not had my fellow panelists say about, is the witness protection. The witness protection strategy has to be enhanced so that the people who are corrupt, who are reporting those who are corrupt, and you know, corruption fights back. We've lost several Kenyans who have come ahead in front and given witnesses of corrupt incidences. What have happened to them? So the government of Kenya is working on a new strategy for witness protection because it's very important. Yes. The other part that the government of Kenya, through His Excellency William Samoei Ruto's anti-corruption strategic plan, is enforcement and prosecution. When we talk about enforcement, what are those challenges that the enforcement capacity? And I remember way back there was a discussion we had on the same about EACC. The matter of financing the EACC and adding more officers who are capable to investigate has to be increased so that the enforcement has the capability. And also prosecution. The prosecution, their capacity needs to be built. For example, have a look at the cases we have today in court. They have stayed for so many years. Why? Because apparently the prosecution may have not done, provided the requirement in evidence to fight that case in court. And those cases keep on taking so long. Yes. The other part also is prevention and deterrence. This strategic plan by His Excellency the President is supposed to offer preventative and deterrence. Because what we have now and what we inherited from the former government of losing 2 billion per day is there because of those issues that we're facing. We have to have preventative measures and deterrence so that we can deter people from participating in corruption. And the other thing I would like to note as I sum up on these points is public awareness and public participation. That is a very key factor. The public have to take center stage in the fight against corruption so that this fight can then be ingrained. It is not a matter of the president saying, what is the president doing? He will do what he has to do. Yes. But we as Kenyans collectively, including those in government and those outside government, have to understand that corruption is a disease that we all need to fight together. Pretty much. Because when a Kenyan gives a bribe for breaking the law, that is a Kenyan promoting corruption. Yes. Right? So therefore, just to sum up, I would like to say that His Excellency has promised Kenyans that he's fighting corruption, and what he is doing, he's working behind the scenes to ensure that that corruption comes to an end within his tenure.
Yes. Here's what somebody's going to ask, and take 2 minutes when I give it to Prof as well to weigh in on this particular subject. Sure. It's not like we haven't seen the president pull shots when it comes to dealing with corruption issues in these ministries. I'll take you back to May 2015, when the head of public service essentially was explaining why the president had fired the health PS, if you do remember back then, when there was a cancer scandal, and sent the entire board home. Somebody said, hold on, if you look at this fertilizer scandal, and I will tell you what the news this morning about it, is that the government has gone in quickly and withdrawn all that fake fertilizer from the market. The 2,000 bags have already been withdrawn. So meaning that somebody knew very well where these bags are, what these bags were, and they knew the source of these bags. Because NCBP works with serialization. They came from here, they went here, they are there, currently as it is. That the cereals are well known. That's why it's very, very easy for you to go back and withdraw. Somebody said, this is a copy and paste of what we saw in the cancer issue, where bills were essentially taken out of board. That it was very easy for the president to say, hold on, you were supposed to make sure that this doesn't happen. It has already happened. So kindly, because I promised Kenyans on this particular issue, can you please go home? And the entire board also went home, because they said, well, you were supposed to do this job, you didn't do it. Just like what Panyamambo was saying, omission. That somebody somewhere slept on their job, and now Kenyans are receiving fake fertilizer. The government now has to go back and withdraw. Why haven't we seen this steady reaction this time around?
You know, when you look at the amounts of fertilizer, bags of fertilizer, we're talking about millions of bags. We're not talking about 2 or 3 bags. So these are the loopholes that I've even pointed out with the president's strategic plan. He has to look at these loopholes, and you see, this is a daily occurrence. It's a real-time thing. You understand? It's a real-time thing. So therefore, I commend the government for pulling out those bugs that have been detected. And therefore, that shows you the government is working to get to the center of that matter. And that is why when I began, I said we give the opportunity to those commissioned to investigate such matters, which is the DCI.
That in some cases,
and in the instance that you've mentioned, and it's in the report in the media, already they have found 2,000 bags. Right? And it's just like adulterated fuel. You go to a petrol station, there is an energy regulatory authority, but you will find some unscrupulous petrol stations selling adulterated fuel. These matters have to, they're always there. And that's again why I say, even us as Kenyans, even in the private sector, those who have been given the task to supply these goods and services, they have to ensure that they have the checks and balances to ensure that Kenyan farmers do not receive fertilizer. So it is wrong, and it would be wrong for anybody to say the program to be stopped, and yet it has benefited Kenyans. Let me ask you a question. A very quick question. Did you hear any fertilizer bags in the previous rain season? No. It was clean. It is those corrupt people combining with the private sector who are supplying, who are putting these bags in there.
And Gadaga, please take 45 seconds.
And I suspect it's sabotage.
Yes, take 45 seconds. Prof, get ready for this one as well. That there are people that the Kenyan government is paying through these farmers' taxes to make sure that the standards are up to speed. Case in point, KEBS. That any other fertilizer that goes to National Cereals and Produce Board has gone through quality checks through KEBS. That is very easy, Githaiga, for you to say, hold on, how did you not catch these millions of bags of fake fertilizer in the Kenyan market? Can you show me the tester you did? Omission. And that's what we were promised, that you're never going to say this.
You see, every statutory body like KEBS has its authority to work. And the president cannot directly interfere. They are independent. However, it is good that this matter has been raised. And this matter is being dealt with right away by government. And I want to give confidence to the farmers. And if there is any farmer out there who has got a fake fertilizer amongst his stock, kindly report that to the nearest DCI so that the government can stamp out and find that cereal. You know, it's serialated, like you said. Every bag that is given has a serial number, so that those suppliers who gave fake fertilizer knowingly, remember, we also have to have a level of trust. In business, there is also a level of trust. When you cannot do a test, Professor, of 1 million bags to check whether all of them are good or bad. You take a sample, right? And you're issued a certificate according to the trust. So if they hid bags in there, then the government needs to stamp down on them and deal with them and prosecute.
Guess what? The couple of notes that we have to take from this particular story, and Githaiga, I'm coming back to you, so I want us to listen on it. That if you look at this particular issue for fertilizer, in fact, the names of these bags are known. So it's very easy for you to go back and say that this particular supplier gave us fake fertilizer. And I will start. Because if you look at what the CS for public service, Moses Kuria, is talking about, he was speaking in Busia County this Easter, saying that the ones that passed the quality test include Mavuno Fertilizer, OCP Africa, Falcon Fertilizers, Mijingu Mines and Fertilizer Limited, and Formin. So the ones that didn't pass are quite known. So it's very easy for you to go back and say, these ones did not pass this quality standard. So it's already known. We continue. Musalia Mudavadi takes the stage again this Easter in Bomet. Prime Cabinet Secretary Musalia Mudavadi says that the government will not relent in its efforts to comprehensively investigate the fertilizer issue, and the culprits will be brought to book to face the full force of the law. He continues, he warned those behind the supply of the substandard fertilizer, saying that their days are numbered. So CS Korea said the ones that passed are this, so the ones that didn't pass are no. Prime Cabinet Secretary stands in and says, well, their days are numbered. Why can't you say that yours didn't pass the standard? So let's take somebody to the book. And Prof, as you respond to that, how is it that between 2022 and 2023, the amount of bribe that is getting paid by Kenyans in majority of these government parastatals and government offices is now doubled? How is it possible?
So, first of all, Elijah, it's unfair to judge Kenya Kwanza on its commitment to fight corruption, because as you are talking, I was just going through again the Kenya Kwanza manifesto. Kenya Kwanza did not run on anti-corruption platform. They ran on the hustler platform. In fact, during the 2022 run to the election, I came up with a method to determine that the Kenya Kwanza manifesto was only 2% different from Azimio manifesto. And actually, Kenya Kwanza manifesto copied heavily from Azimio manifesto. So the difference, which is 2%, is that Azimio emphasized so much on fight against corruption, but Kenya Kwanza did not have that. And this is clear, he didn't. Because actually people said, you say Ruto is a thief, he's our thief. The hustler said that we are ready to support our thief.
If you say he is.
Yes, if you say he's a thief,
yes,
we are ready to support our thief, which means that the hustler narrative is what drove them to power. And they did very well. So according to me, it's unfair to judge them on that.
But,
that's why.
But the hustler narrative was also anchored on giving opportunities, making sure that what you deserve,
the hustlers were supposed to be. The hustlers said they don't care even how you make your money and campaign. What they care is sort out the issue, which has equally failed. That I told you in 2023. I told about broken promises. So on that note, let me say the following. That's why you're saying that corruption has doubled. It has doubled because that was not what they promised Kenyans, and they have delivered exactly what they promised on corruption. They never campaigned on corruption platform. Remember Raila Odinga not ready for debating William Ruto because he said he cannot debate somebody with that kind of record. Remember those kinds of records. Yes. It's not me saying it. Azimio issued a statement that they cannot allow their candidate to lose his credibility by standing to debate with someone whom they perceive as a thief. So that was their position, and who is not committed to corruption. That time, Rigathi Gachagua was having this 7.5 billion shillings issue case, isn't it? Yes. Which was withdrawn. Look at Aisha Juma's case, withdrawn. So when these things were being withdrawn, and the president plucking each and every key technocrat from parastatals, from key government positions, and replacing them with politicians who did not care about the goodwill of the country. We speak of a cabinet which is 98% politician. There's just a quasi-technocrat in the name of Professor Njuguna Ndung'u. But the rest of those guys are politicians. So that team was not a team that will fight corruption. Yes. If you want to win against corruption, the team you put should be able to fight corruption. Like football, if you want to win a match, you put more strikers, offensive players, as opposed to defensive players. Kenya Kwanza, on the issue of the hustler fund and the rest, they put more offensive players. On corruption, they put more people who defend corruption, not fight. Now there's a difference between defending corruption and fighting corruption. Unfortunately, the language I'm hearing from my brother, very respected brother, Githaiga, is how to defend it by saying Witness Protection Act, I don't know what, all those things. You are defending corruption, not fighting it. So Kenya Kwanza did not run on that platform, so they are spending time on defending corruption. Then secondly, let me just weigh in the cost of corruption, because Kenyans need to get what we mean by corruption, because the cost of corruption, actually, I call it wisdom of fools. Normally people think that when you get corrupt, you make money. But I can tell you, my brother, you now, there's a case in Embu, a very, very remarkable case in Embu, where a minister, engineer in charge of water, gave a contract to a fake supplier of chemical for water treatment. Yes. This supplier of chemicals gave fake chemicals to the water treatment. The engineer earned the money. Later, the engineer was attending a funeral where his daughter had passed on by drinking illicit water. What is the cost of corruption to that engineer? Can the amount of money he earned from that incident bring back his daughter to life? A policeman can take, for example, you see these vehicles crashing, for example, the one in Voi. There was no brakes, faulty brakes. How can a vehicle move from Nairobi and reach Voi without the policeman knowing this car has no brakes? Now another accident has taken place in Kisumu. And it's both brakes. So by the time these policemen are being bribed on the road to allow a faulty vehicle to move, do they know who is going to be occupant there? Maybe your son is an occupant in the bus, then bus crashes, you have to attend a funeral. Maybe the bribe was 100 bob. Can you allow your son, daughter, relative son, and die of that? Or you can be having your wife driving up from the escarpment, then you allow a bus that has no brake, and that bus runs into your wife's car, but you took 200 bob. The cost of corruption, I have done calculation by realizing that even if you take a bribe, we end up with a negative loss anytime you do it. Let's, for example, see, everybody is corrupt now. Corruption is going up, isn't it? So you take a bribe from somebody of 200,000 shillings, isn't it? When you want to get your son to school, you pay 20,000 to bribe that, isn't it? Then you want to get a job, you bribe that. In the end, even you taking money from others in form of corruption, you end up again bribing other people to get the job done. So what I'm asking Kenyans, let us, all of us, hate corruption, because it will have a positive impact in our pockets. Yes. Because everything, as you pick money in bribes from people, you also end up paying other people. And that you don't benefit from corruption, because people are now saying corruption must be there, everybody must eat. But I can tell you, Kenyans, it has a negative impact.
Yes.
In the Solomonic economics, we talk about wisdom of fools. So what I'm trying to about is that what has also happened that it has increased cost of goods and services. That's another cost of corruption. Like now, have you heard that corruption has doubled? So I've done calculations here, that's what I want to read for you. Anytime you buy bread, because we had about what we call budgeted corruption, meaning that they must be put in the taxes for you to pay, isn't it? So anytime you buy bread, Kenyans, 33 shillings goes to feed the corrupt person who is in charge of the state, isn't it? Anytime you buy fuel, 47 shillings goes to corruption. So as you see that thing counting shillings, 47 shillings are going there. I've also done about the like milk, sugar, cooking oil, among all those things, there's an average of 37 shillings per unit you buy goes to corruption. Anytime you consume transport works. I was in Seme. It's a very good story I told them. There's a place called Rata in Seme. There's a place called Kombewa. I asked the matatu, the border people, before this government came in place, what was the transport between Rata and Kombewa? They told me it used to be 100 bob. Then I asked them, how much is it now? They told me 150. Then I asked them, what has increased? Has the distance between Rata and Kombewa increased? They said no. Are you now consuming fuel that they add gold inside or silver or something inside? They say no. What has increased? Corruption. So inside fuel, there's only 47 shillings. So that 47 shillings inside fuel has increased the cost of transport. Nairobi, Kisumu used to be 800 bob. Now it's 2,200. Has the distance between Nairobi and Kisumu increased? No. Has the road become more hilly? Isn't it? No. Are these people now traveling when they're having dinner or whatever? No. What has increased is corruption inside it. So the cost of corruption is increasing the cost of everything. So I'm urging Kenyans to fight it. The second point I have is about state capture. You have talked about why are those institutions not investigating corruption and the rest. All the reports from NYS, there's never been investigated and transparently put to people. All this government, for example, William, they have always done what Moi did. You set up a commission of inquiry. After that, they don't give you anything you need, like NADCO report. Again, now people are complaining about it, yet that they must have a piece of it. State capture is stopping from people. And I've gone now to the Commission for Administrative Justice. I was there on Thursday. And I filed a petition that all these cases must be investigated by Ombudsman and will have to be published in a website publicly so that Kenyans can know. And I'll end by saying, why is my concern? If there's an isolated case about fertilizer, I will say that's okay. But you see, fertilizer is not the only case of fakeness. In fact, Kenya Kwanza is moving to become a fake government. Why? In this government, we have fake fertilizer, isn't it? In the same government, we had fake sugar. You had that was being distributed. Thirdly, we had fake fuel, adulterated. He has just said it together, isn't it? Water, which is not clean. That's why Catholic Church, during the Lenten campaign, was reflecting on affordable, accessible, clean, adequate water. It was being prayed for in church in the whole of Lenten campaign. It was launched by Bishop Obal, who is the charge of justice and peace department.
Cooking oil?
Because an issue.
Please add cooking
Yes, I said cooking oil also. Medicine, which is fake, expired. You understand? Mosquito nets, which was done by cancer, which were never there, or they were having holes, or they were not working, they could not prevent malaria. So the trend of fakeness in this government is on the roof. So this evidence has given us evidence that Kenya Kwanza has institutionalized corruption. That's why the figures are, because average was around 6,000. Now, average to get government service now is 12,000. Isn't about 12,000 because it was 11,600 something. So as we continue doubling corruption, you will start seeing that your cost of living will continue doubling. And I said there's no time of the NADCO report, the bipartisan, was supposed to put discussion of corruption at the epicenter. When Kalonzo failed to discuss that matter, And now he's telling people that he's threatening us. By signing a report that cannot solve Kenyans' problem, now you are telling them they're heroes. They're heroes, they died. I cry tears, Simba. When I see politicians, he said they were not given a chance to attend funerals so that they can vent and become more popular. They go and wave, like, for us Luos now, because I'm a Luo elder, they're, officially been installed, they wave that thing called the fly whisk and say, you are a hero. And the hero is dead. 31 people died during the Mandamano, and they are heroes for a NADCO report that cannot solve why they died. So for me, that is the biggest concern.
Fanyamambo, here's the thing. We're still extrapolating what the government really promised, because we're looking at how the corruption index has really gone up within a very short span. Some of the things that the government promised is they want to pass the Conflict of Interest Act, which essentially other people call the State Capture Commission. That we're going to see the State Capture Commission that was going to look into government officials who are in the process of doing business with government. They said, you're never going to say that. Guess what? Up to now, the latest remarks that we have from the president on this particular one is that he is urging, or is going to urge, his Kenya Kwanza allied members of parliament to make sure that this is passed, and quickly at that. At this particular time, Fanyamambo, here it is. The report states that Kenyans have normalized corruption. They're also saying that if you look around, Kenyans know somebody somewhere who knows somebody who can help them get a government service quicker. So that is now a normal thing. That's why it's very hard for us to start fighting corruption that we have completely normalized. I want you to touch on the State Capture Commission. Why haven't we seen it? If indeed that was supposed to come up with it. Why is it taking this time?
Two things. I think the first one is what you've asked, and I'll start from there. Who owns some of the insurance companies that insure government? So you can't begin to talk about, and I don't want to mention those insurance companies on air because people know them. I can't advertise them for free. They would have to pay me and pay you for advertising. But who owns those insurance companies? Some of those government MPs, and not far from Nairobi, you know them, and senators. They own some of the leading wines and spirits and bars within Kilima. It's known.
That's true.
You can tell this wines and spirits is owned by so-and-so.
Yes.
And that person is somebody within Kenya Kwanza. So even the fight against alcohol is not going to happen. So this conflict of interest bill is not going to pass. It's not going to pass because some of the people in government are doing business with government. And some of now, talk about hotels. I want you to go to KICC today for any conference, and I want you to take a photo of the meal card. The food from KICC is not coming from KICC. This is an assignment I want you to give to take Kenyans. I want you to go to KICC today, whether there's a conference or anything, just queue where the meal cards are, take a photo and share with Kenyans. It's coming from a hotel owned by a senior government official within this place. That bill will not pass. Because now we are even having to transport food from our hotels to public places to feed people from there. I've attended several conferences there. And if you go today, not tomorrow, not next year, go today, lunch hour, just go to KICC, tell them, give me a meal card. You'll see where the food is coming from. So that conflict of interest will not come to an end. Mr. Githaiga here tried to explain to us very interesting things about how the government is first trying to identify corruption, come up with brackets, get to understand. And I laugh. The reason I laugh is because President William Samoei Ruto was first elected in 1997. So he was in parliament for 5 years. In 2002, he became a cabinet minister. By the way, take your calculator. 2024 minus 1997, it's 27 years. President William Ruto has been within parliament and government for the last 27 years. Any girl who was born in 27 years, some of them now on their firstborn or secondborn. So you cannot begin to start saying that you want to identify corruption, to know where it is.
If that is your biggest promise.
I mean, you've been there for 27 years. Look, can you imagine if you had worked in Lookuptv for 27 years, and then someone makes you the director, And then now you start telling us, I want to start writing down on where corruption happens within. You've been here for 27 years. You can even smell, you know everything. You know everything. I wish, and then you remember, out of these 27 years, 10 years he was deputy president, so very close to the presidency. And when he was campaigning, he talked about state capture a lot. He talked a lot about corruption in government. In fact, at one point during the debate at Bomas, and I challenge us, all of us, to go and look at the clips, he said that the reason why the fuel is expensive is government taxes and corruption. So he knows corruption. So this issue of Mr. Githaiga telling us that government is trying to plan, to identify, to come up with, that is just a waste of time, so that 2027 ifike harafa when you are saying you are still coming up with a program on how to fight corruption.
Yes.
If it was Fanyamambo who's come into government and he's never been in government, then it would be understandable.
Yes.
But after having been in power for 27 years, and within proximity of parliament, then as a cabinet secretary, then held several ministerial positions, then deputy president for 10 years, and now president for close to 2 years, I think it is insincere to say that the government is not aware of how corruption is happening, and that therefore they need to come up with. I mean, the last thing I'm going to say on this corruption issue is about this issue of the anti-corruption. Why do we need Bishop Oginde there, by the way? He'll end up soiling his name. What is this you are glorifying and calling corruption? It is theft. I've always said the penal code is enough. Someone stole public money. Then you come and create an ethics and anti-corruption commission, and then you create, what for? In fact, in TikTok, I hear them ask, for what for? It is simple. All you need to do is to say that somebody stole public money, the penal code is enough. But because this person has stolen billions, and you want to find a way to glorify stealing of a lot of money, you call it corruption. But if we abolish the Anti-Corruption Act, if we abolish all that and just say these are thieves, just like the Keto Rustler, this is a thief, this is a person, mwenye liba stove na mwenye liba public money, they should be punished through the penal code. Let's stop wasting taxpayers' money with commissions and directors and EACC and vehicles. They have a lot of double cabins going around here, wasting our fuel for nothing. Really, this is theft, and the penal code is enough to punish theft. In fact, it's so comprehensive on how to be a thief.
Does it?
Yeah.
Pretty much. Githaiga, I'm going to read for you a quick comment right here from one of our ardent viewers called Edwin. Edwin, good morning. Hopefully it's not raining so much in Kisumu this morning. Here it is. They're saying that when it comes to the bills that we've seen get passed quickly under this administration, the housing levy bill, which was enshrined in the Finance Act of 2023, that now is now saying majority of Kenyans contribute 1.5% of their salary, was passed under record time. And then it goes to say it because it was an issue close to President Dr. William Ruto's heart.
Yes.
All right? So he asked one question. So what about this issue for corruption? What is going on with the Conflict of Interest Act that he said was going to be passed? Goes on to ask, what about that State Capture Commission? What is going on with it? As you get ready to answer, Edwin, there is also a comparison here that we got to look. I mean, when it comes to fighting corruption, the things you see them, that you can call them out. You can call out that you, as a president, has the powers then to fire and hire in majority of these parastatals. So it's all right for you to go in and say, no, I can't allow that to happen. Case in point, the latest one that we have from 2023, and majority of these things actually happening in 2023. The president fired the PS in 2023. Samia Hassan Suluhu in Tanzania called out corruption in a state agency that essentially over-invoiced a Boeing B767-300F that was supposed to deliver to Air Tanzania in April 2023. The controller budget said, we don't understand how this is expensive. She didn't wait for any other. She ordered the entire board and the CEO to go home just on the basis of that. Githaiga, I mean, when you read notes about what is active fight of corruption, you start asking questions about whether we are indeed genuine about this fight of corruption in this country.
Yes, I would like to say here that His Excellency William Samoei Ruto is genuine on the fight against corruption. I have laid down the strategy that His Excellency is working on privately, not privately, but as government builds up on the war on corruption, because we don't want to react like knee-jerk reaction on this matter of corruption, because it's a disease that has been with us for many, many years, since independence, pre-independence. Corruption didn't start today. So it's something that has been with us. So, however, touching on the point of the gentleman from Kisumu, indeed, the State Capture Commission bill is being processed in Parliament, and it's in the desk of one Mr. Ishongwa, and it will be presented in Parliament very soon. They are in recess, and obviously there is a timetable for everything to happen. You cannot put everything at once. Yes. You have to go with the system.
Systematically.
Yes.
But if you are the leader of majority in the National House, yes, and we know how these things happen, yes, you and I, Githaiga, have sat here, yes, and spoken about whether it's right for the leader of majority to promise the president, yes, that once we go back, this particular issue for housing levy is going to get done and dusted with before the end of this week, that week. And by the way, it was done on a Thursday as opposed to a Friday. That if it was something that is giving the president sleepless nights, and I'm not reading this from anywhere, this is a headline that we have on our website here, yes, that the president is spending sleepless nights over corruption. Would it be okay for us to say that this particular bill will be of priority to the Kenya Kwanza members of parliament because they will get brief from the party leader?
Indeed. The president is having sleepless nights because, even he is quoted very well saying that he has warned his friends, his family, that if anybody is found guilty, then he will face the wrath of His Excellency, the President. So far, nobody has been found guilty. Because you see, what the previous government did was hunting down people who have not gone through the due process of the law. They have not been prosecuted. They have not been jailed or been given, they have not been told that they are guilty of that corruption. Yes. So the president doesn't want to make the same mistake as the former president did. And that is why he's working on a strategic plan, which has just been tarnished here as planning, and yet the president has been there from all that time. Yes. But however, when you become the president, all you've been through, you put it aside. You start dealing as a president because you're under the oath. And you have to follow the law.
On a personal level, Githaiga, I mean, when you read that report by EACC, yes, that corruption index has now doubled.
Exactly.
In just 2 years' time, all right? What gives you concern as a Kenyan citizen this morning?
You see, corruption index rising is showing you that the country is struggling with corruption. Right? And the same corruption that we inherited. So that is why I'm saying the government has come up with a strategic plan.
Yes.
You see, everything has to be done with a plan.
Would you want the government to change tact when EACC is telling you it's getting worse?
Look, EACC, and I've always said here, yes, that EACC is an independent organ. That report has been presented to the president, right? Like it has been presented to the citizens. Now the president will now take those recommendations because all you're pointing about is the index rising. But in that report, there are recommendations. Why are you not talking about the EACC recommendations? Why are you not talking about the strategy that the EACC wants to be followed so that the cases of corruption can be reduced? And that is why I'm saying again, and I'll repeat again, the president has a plan on the fight on corruption. And trust me, within the next 2 months, before the recess comes for the next holidays, I am promising you, His Excellency William Samoei Ruto, you will see heads rolling. Yes. You will see heads rolling.
When you sit here, Githaiga, and say, well, the index is actually rising. We've seen the EACC's recommendations, and by the way, a proper analysis of those recommendations are not any different from what we've seen in previous governments as well.
However, we need, because you're stating them, you're not stating of previous governments.
That's it. So, Githaiga, just take 45 seconds. We only have 4 minutes for this, but actually 3 minutes before we wind up from the studio this morning. That it is rising. Does it concern you then that indeed, within this short period of doing little to nothing, it's getting worse in the country?
Listen, the president has a strategic plan, and that plan will be implemented. And it will spare nobody. Anybody found guilty on corruption shall be dealt with very viciously. And secondly, His Excellency the President is very serious on this matter. And he has stated it publicly. I don't know what you want him to do, but he has stated it publicly. And that is why, unlike before, now we have working commissions working independently without the interference of the executive. For you see, this commission also has pointed negatively on the executive, saying that the corruption index has gone up. Previously, you'd never have had that. This is the first time EACC has been allowed to work without political interference. And just to sum up,
15 seconds,
the conflict of interest bill was done in 2019. His Excellency William Samoei Ruto was not the president then. But however, it's in the pipeline of the majority leaders' bills that are going to be enacted in Parliament.
I'll be coming to you. 45 seconds, Prof. It doubling in 1 year and some months is a big concern, and that's why we're here today talking about this particular issue. What can they do in the short term, at least, to turn this around? Because Kenyans are paying 11,000 shillings on average to get a government service. 45 seconds, Prof, before we give it to Fanya Mambo.
That's unfair to give 45 seconds after you allow the guy to spend all that time. But let me take what I can do. First and foremost, corruption looks like rainfall, bad weather. People just say, oh, today is cold, today is hot, with no one having interest to return. I've told you it has a lot of cost implication. I'm going to give a very good report to try to persuade the Kenyans that we have to leave corruption. In as much as I believe that corruption begins at the top, but also the culture has been too entrenched that now we call it institutionalized corruption. There's what we call sporadic corruption. There's what we call systematic corruption. But now we move to sporadic. Means that you see a few people who can ask for bribes. That's sporadic. Systematized means that there's some institution that if you want something, you have to get. But here is whereby it is in the system, it's in the budget. The budget controller told them in camera that we have budgeted corruption. No one has acted on that, and now they're saying they're working on. And I can tell you why even this conflict of interest bill is useless. I'm a governance expert. There's a commission called Public Procurement and Disposal Act that should cure the interest. Setting up a commission to work on something, on reports, Kenya spent money, submitted, nothing happens, is totally a waste of time. You ask me what needs to be done.
10 seconds, Prof.
I don't know what William Ruto is, but if I was president, I would call my ministers, PSS and the rest, and tell them, I live in State House, I have my rent taken care of, I have my transport taken care of, my security, don't make money for me. But the fact that William Ruto wants his ministers to make money for him, he gives them a target each, isn't it? Then they give their people below them targets. Until the policeman collecting money in the traffic here for 50 shillings, 100 shillings, he has been given a target by his boss. So here we cascade corruption. Kenya Kwanza said bottom up, isn't it? But in corruption, it is top down. And the only day we shall end corruption is when the president himself do not want money made through corruption. So long as he is a consumer of money made through corruption, he cascades to Gachagua, and he goes to all ministers. Even Mudavadi is saying they won't take it lightly. It's the same thing. He's supervising ministries. And it starts with the interior, which is the most corrupt ministry, followed by health and the rest.
Pretty much. Fanya Mambo, clear this morning in just 45 seconds. What needs to be done, at least in the short term? Because that report is showing it's getting worse in the country.
Kenya Kwanza keeps talking of corruption they inherited, but they don't talk about having inherited and multiplied by 2 because it has doubled. Number 2, some of these things really, the CS for Interior comes and says that Nyayo House is a crime scene. You know, kitambo, Mkenya yoyote alikuwa anakaa nyumbani. And from the nearest cyber at home, you would apply for a passport, wait for the 14 days, go and collect your passport. So before you talk about these many things, all they need to do is return us back to where we were, where Kenyans used to apply for a passport. Just last year, 2022, 2021, You apply for a passport from the cyber near home. You just go to have your fingers and this. But right now, it is CS Kindiki who has said how much in the thousands people are paying to get a passport. So before you do many things, just give things back to where they were. There's a lot of corruption that has come now at NTSA. It was very simple, getting number plates, you know, getting a logbook, getting everything. Remove the human hand from it and let the system do its work. It was working very well. You transfer a logbook online, you would wait for the requisite days, the system would give you a message, you would go and collect your logbook. They came and made sure that there's human interference in it, and that's where the corruption came in. So before Kenya Kwanza goes to do all those theoretical things, let them first take us back to where we were. That Kenyans used to apply for a passport, wait for 14 days, and without corruption you would get it. You'd transfer your car online, wait for this number of days, and you would get your logbook. You'd apply for defaced number plates or broken up number plates, and you would wait on the system and get them. Let us remove the human touch from these things, because that is what is bringing about corruption. Somebody wants to sit there and feel important that people are coming to his desk. That's what is killing us.
Pretty much. Guess what? We're taking on live. What do you think is going to turn around things around this corruption index in the country? Because it looks as if whatever the government is doing currently as it is in the fight against corruption has not really worked. When by that report by EACC that is showing that what you were paying last year as a corruption token has now doubled. So now you got to part with 11,623 shillings to get a government service. In fact, if you do an interview and get a government job, before you get that job, it's an average of 116,000 shillings before you get employed by the government. Ooh, that's a lot of money. But then they're saying you've normalized it. Online at Lookuptv, across all your social media platforms. Prof, Fayamambo, Yadaiga, always happy to have you around. Gentlemen, thank you very much. I'll see you tomorrow for another session. Goodbye.
We value your feedback and welcome your complaints about our programming and operations. Feel free to get in touch with us through 0700 893 542 or send us an email to info@lookuptv.co.ke.
Come, let us show you place spot to build your dream home in Baraka Garden, situated just 5.4 kilometers from Blue Post